This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another week of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Packed Monday show today. Lots to get to from the weekend. I don't know, what should we talk? Maybe Raptors, Jays, Moose, Ice. Well, we'll certainly get to some Winnipeg Jets talk coming up in a little bit as well. Joe Pascucci is going to join us in about 20 minutes or so on the program. And we'll also have Jeff Hamilton from the Winnipeg Free Press on the program. We don't play a ton of clips on this show normally. Today's going to be a little different because, honest to God, we heard some of the most damning comments post-game on both Friday and Saturday that I can ever remember with the Winnipeg Jets. So we'll get into some of those as well, and very much looking forward to what both Joe and Jeff have to say on the current topic. And of course, with Jeff coming on, we haven't had him on the program since the horrible revelations of the charges against Kelsey McKay last week. We'll definitely have to touch on that with Hammer as well coming up a little later on. A big shout out to the sponsors that make this program happen each and every day, including Wallace & Wallace, our newest sponsor, Aikens Lake, Wilderness Lodge, F Apparel, Vita Health, Culligan Water, Manitoba Battery, Royal Sports, Breezy Bend Golf and Country Club, Not Auto Corp, Little Brown Jug, Princess Auto, Boston Pizza, the Nick and Nicky DQ Group, Canadian Club Whiskey, and of course our friends over at Coolbet Canada. Let's get Michael Remis into the program and get this show on the road. Remo, first of all, how was your long weekend? How was the dinosaur extravaganza on Friday that you've been talking about for months?
I was so hyped for that. It was a lot. It was a lot, but I definitely got my steps in. My son, he's 2.5, very blown away by the number and size of the dinosaurs there. Just kept pointing and running from station to station. You could pay them more money if you wanted to like go on rides and stuff and bouncy castles. We did not spring for that, but I had a great time, great long weekend. It was Passover, so I had a couple family dinners as well, Easter brunch as well, so jam-packed with family activities, so that was fun. And yeah, we had a couple Jets games squeezed in there, and that was going to be a topic at many dinners on the weekend.
Yeah, now whether you're gathering for Passover on Saturday earlier or the Easter dinners last night, yes, I'm sure there was a lot of people gathering around the table and going, what the hell has happened to the Winnipeg Jets? Hey, listen, I mean, we've been talking for a week, or many weeks here. I mean, I think everyone knew what was happening with this hockey club and where they were going. And if you were someone that was hanging on to a sub 1% chance of making the playoffs, I definitely respect your ability to be positive in the face of overwhelming evidence to the contrary. But I'll tell you this, Remis, and I think I said this to you off air going into Friday's game. The combination of the Jets and their current predicament, getting to leave Winnipeg early and spending a couple extra days down in South Florida going into a game against the powerhouse Florida Panthers was a recipe for disaster, and that certainly was on display on Friday night. I mean, a team that was obviously ill-prepared to play, I would suggest, against most teams in the National Hockey League, never mind a juggernaut like the Florida Panthers. And, you're not ready, you don't do the right things against a team like that, and you can get embarrassed. And that is pretty much what happened on Friday night to start the back-to-back losses in the Sunshine State.
Yeah, Florida's a good team, and I think the Jets' record against some of these top teams, it seems like they're consistently giving up 6-7 goals to them. Colorado has had their way with the Jets. Minnesota, we saw Tampa and Florida putting up touchdowns on the weekend. Maybe there was one extra point that that didn't get converted on Friday. Either way,
Yeah, blocked the extra point on Friday night.
Yeah, they blocked the block. Either way, Pierre-Luc Dubois had that tweet. We were joking about it, but they definitely, the easiest joke you could have made on Friday was, oh, wow, the Jets looked like they spent all week at the beach getting some sun and weren't ready to play. And how can you not make that joke after Florida scores 2 right away? And all the goals, it seems like they're just leaving a Florida player without a defenseman between, the Florida player and Hellebuck, and it's one-on-one with the goalie repeatedly, and they had no problem beating him. And again, Florida's a pretty strong team. You got to be ready to play, and you've been hearing, the same thing over and over again all season, Huss. How they're poor starts, and they're not playing the right way, and we're at game, 75 here, or whatever it is. How can you be this many games in the season and not have an idea about how you should be playing hockey? Like, how are we still having the same conversation over and over again? It's like beating your head against a wall. And then you hear Dave Lowry talk about the way they want to play. I don't know if he's, again, just slamming his head into the wall, saying, why isn't this working? Or they're trying to fit a square peg into a round hole and they can't figure out why it's not going in. But something seems off after listening to the team on the weekend. I think the player availability was I don't know, damning. Is that the word? It was just
in my opinion, some of the most damning quotes we've ever heard. In season or even postseason about a team, and this team's finished with some disappointments in the past. But between Nikolai Ehlers, Paul Stastny, and Kyle Connor, they all implicated the entire team, and some really, really concerning things. Not being prepared to play, not doing the things that professionals need to do to compete consistently for a full season. And Kyle Connor suggesting, and I'll quote, and we'll play this a little later on, that it's never too late to start building a culture after the 75th game of the regular season is, about as jaw-dropping, but it speaks to where this team is right now. We've been fed a lot of, frankly, BS. I think it's quite clear now over the last couple of years of what a great group this is and what a great, the team is strong. It's a great group inside. They play for each other. They play together. Yeah, no, they don't. Like, how anyone could think that from watching this season, you'd be lying to yourself. And to be honest with you, I think there's been a lot of less than honest comments over the course of this season, even into last season at times, especially the way things ended. And, we often like to talk about pumping the truth serum into guys. Well, I don't know. There was some of that in the post game, and it seems like some of the key players, the guys that have had the best seasons on this team, and Ehlers and Kyle Connor and Paul Stastny are at the top of that list, being pretty darn clear about what they think is happening and what isn't happening with the Winnipeg Jets and why they are where they are right now. I'll tell you what, Remo. Let's start off. Nikolai Ehlers spoke after Friday's game to the Florida Panthers, and there's a number of clips here. But let's get number 8 ready. And listen, there's a number of comments from Ehlers, who, to be honest, was asked a number of questions and essentially came back to the one common theme that for the work of the coaching staff and the things that the players know what they have to do to win, they consistently just simply don't play the right way. And this is what he had to say after the game on Friday.
We didn't come out ready to play. Our line goes out there the first 2 shifts, we get scored on. And that's just straight up not good enough. With the position that we're in, you can't do that. They're obviously a great team, and we weren't good today. So, a team like that is buzzing in their own building, they're going to take advantage of a team that's, not playing the right way.
Yeah, so there's Nikolai Ehlers a little bewildered about the way that the team played, the way they came out. And listen, terrible starts for the Winnipeg Jets have almost been a calling card of this season. Ehlers was asked, how can one explain just how seemingly not ready the Jets have looked so many times this season, including Friday night?
Yeah, and they trot out the back-to-back excuse frequently, and then you look at this after a couple rested days on the beach in Florida. I remember Vegas where they didn't get a shot for like the first 15 minutes. I mean, a couple games this year, they haven't got a shot for first 10, 15, and it's just over and over again. They have these slow starts, and, Florida, they jumped on them right away. And I mean, it just seems like we're going through same thing over and over again. Credit to those guys who came out, Stastny, Ehlers, Connor, Dylan as well Friday. I thought we're pretty honest. And you were seeing the questions like, where's the captains? But I don't think they ask for him anymore.
They don't.
Because I think it's pretty clear, because he would have said, "Oh, we're a young team. We had a really hard schedule this week." You would know what he's going to say, and he's not going to get that honesty. So credit to these guys.
Yeah, listen, the relationship between Wheeler and the media was bad to begin with, I think, dating back a few years. But you're exactly right. I mean, this is not Blake Wheeler dodging the media. They're just done. I mean, there's no. I mean, if you look at these last 2 weeks, it's Josh Morrissey spoken just about every game. I think he had 4 or 5 games in a row. I mean, we're hearing from Paul Stastny a lot. We're hearing from Kyle Connor a lot. We're hearing from Nikolai Ehlers. And frankly, because these are the guys that have actually been, giving somewhat honest answers to the current predicament to the team. Remote, grab number 9 if you could, because this is a little bit more from Ehlers, and I do want to get to Stastny and Connor, and we'll sort of do that throughout the program as well when we're talking with Joe and Jeff on these topics. We mentioned about these slow starts. Ehlers was asked about that being such a problem this season, including on Friday night.
Honestly, if I had an answer to that question, we would have been able to fix that. And I don't have the answer. We've done this all season. We've had so many bad starts, and like I said, if we knew the reason, it would have been fixed a long time ago. I think we're obviously not satisfied with how this game went, but we got a new game tomorrow, and we gotta get ready for that one. It's it's not going to be an easy game tomorrow either. So we got to pull ourselves together and just play the right way.
All right, so there's Nikolai Ehlers, and this is something that we've heard, a few times before under, the few times we've had more candid comments, and it just simply hasn't happened. And that is why I think we're heading into, I don't want to say the most tumultuous, but certainly it could be and should be the most change-filled offseason we've seen since this team got here from Atlanta. And to be honest, I don't think that's even close. We've heard from Ehlers. Remis, I want to listen to these 2 Stastny ones as well. We'll maybe get to KFC a little bit later on, but grab number 5, first of all, if you could. Paul Stastny speaking afterwards, 21 goals on the season now, was able to score. And he was, listen, for Paul Stastny, who's very calm and collected, even he was quite hot. And you could see that there was a level of anger. There was a level of embarrassment on a guy that's played for a long time in this league at a very high level on some very good teams. And I couldn't help but think that he is somewhat shell-shocked about what's happened to this club and how this continues to happen. And, he said, first off, what I think everybody knows, that this team consistently leaves their goaltender hung out to dry. Here's Paul Stastny on that from Saturday night.
Just disappointment. I think yesterday they just came at us wave on wave, and then today thought we started better, and we had a couple good looks to kind of extend our lead. We didn't, and then we left our goalie out to dry, like we've done all year. And some games, Bucky makes big saves or they don't score. But over the course of the year, if you keep giving up grade A chances like that, if you keep kind of leaving guys alone in the slot, you're going to get burnt. And when you play a skilled team like that, I think, you give them that extra chance to make a play. Like I said, we left Bucky out to dry, and I think that's the most disappointing part.
All right, so there's Paul Stastny. Now, Remo, if you can, get 15 loaded up, because this, to me, from a veteran player that I refer to and I still believe is the conscience of this team, for him to be asked about, what this team isn't doing and diving into some things that deal with the room, deal with off the ice that just simply aren't at the level of quality playoff type teams is has to be incredibly concerning. And you can only imagine how these comments reverberated within the front office of the Winnipeg Jets. Here's Stastny one more time from Saturday.
I don't know. I've always kind of try to have the mindset as the season goes on, you get better and better. And, the first 20 game season, it's easy for anybody to be good. Everyone's excited, everyone's got a lot of energy. But then the guys that take care of themselves, the guys that put in the work off the ice, on the ice over the course of the year, I don't even want to say they raise their game. I just want to say they kind of stay consistent. And what happens throughout the season is, if you're not focused, you're not dedicated, you're not ready to go every single night, it gets away from you quick. And this league isn't the same as when it was when I came in the league, where there was, 18 teams that had a chance of making the playoffs. I think now every team is good, is skilled, and can beat you on any given night. And I love that, because you have to be ready you can't have an off night. And if you do, you kind of hope your teammates can kind of pick it up for you, but you can't have multiple off nights. And I think that's the beauty of this league is, every single night it's tough. But that's what we play this game for. We love the competition. We love to fight, and we love to win. And if you're not all there together, it's tough to win this league. And there's going to be nights where some guys have off nights, and that's normal. Everyone makes mistakes out there. It's all about covering up for that guy, and it's a game of mistakes. So it's not you're never gonna have a perfect night. If you do, that's once a year. Where everyone kind of chips in and no one's a bad game. But when we're there for each other, when we're covering up for each other's mistakes, when we care for each other, then you have better results, or at least you're in the game, and you're in the game for the whole 60 minutes, and then you might lose a close game, but you give yourself a fighting chance.
All right. Well, that to me might have been the money quote from the entire weekend. I mean, you need to be focused. You need to be dedicated. You need to be ready to go. All of those things that the Winnipeg Jets have consistently not been this year. And Paul Stastny called it the way he sees it. And again, this is a guy that knows what we're talking about. He's been on some very, very good teams. He's been on teams that have won at a high level. And he's had a great season this year. And I mean, for him to be doing that at this age, for the amount of commitment and preparation and dedication that Paul Stastny needs, I think it's pretty clear, Remis, that he's looking around this room right now at a very talented team that simply is not doing what it takes to compete at a professional level against the other teams in the National Hockey League each and every night. And, we're going to hear from what Kyle Connor had to say, and, certainly from the coach. To me, what we just heard from Paul Stastny it's chilling in a lot of ways. And, it gets us back to the big question. How the heck did we in this hockey team get here? And what needs to happen going forward to put this miserable season in the rearview mirror and start going in the right direction? No kidding.
Sorry. Malparis in chat says it's been a problem for more than just this year, and I agree. I mean, you've seen the last couple of years how much Connor Hellebuyck, covered up a lot of the defensive issues on this team, and I see a lot of people, maybe blaming him. You look at his raw numbers, and I mean, they're not great. His goals against is around 3. His save percentage is low, but you look at the chances that Florida and Tampa getting one-on-one in with them. I mean, Sergachev walking in, I mean, a defenseman with nobody and just deking with the backhand, or Huberto, cross crease passes that aren't getting picked off. Guys just going for tap-ins. So I don't blame Hellebuyck at all. And you look at, the way they say playing the right way. So what I was saying was, he's covered up a lot of the issues, but I kept thinking back to, 2019, what was it, January? Since then, the team has kind of been going downhill. I remember when they brought in, Matt Hendricks.
Yep.
I don't know what that was about.
Vice president of morale.
We had the ruffled feathers that offseason, the no-show in the Game 6 loss to St. Louis. I mean, all of this just seems to have snowballed into where we are now, and I think it's going to be a very interesting offseason, maybe more interesting than we've had for a while, but for the wrong reasons, and the reasons that we thought this was going to be a much better season than we had, and I think anything would be a much better season than what we've been witnessing here over the last couple weeks.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, listen, it's quite clear that there's been absolutely nothing that has really turned around or improved since Dave Lowry took over. So, I mean, I think it's a fait accompli that there will be a new coach, and I would assume a new coaching staff. I mean, that hasn't happened in the past, but I find it impossible to believe that they could, go into the offseason, say they're changing the head boss, the head guy, but keep that coaching staff. So let's assume that that is the case. But I also think it's very easy just to blame the coach. And I mean, listen, has coaching been a strength of the Winnipeg Jets? Absolutely not. But when you listen to things like what Paul Stastny just said, this isn't about the guy that's behind the bench, whether he's an interim coach or a lame duck coach. I mean, it really is about the personnel. It is about the makeup of the club. It is about the locker room. And at the end of the day, it's about the level of, we called this a lot, the give a shit level of a lot of players. And I'll tell you what, right now at this point and I can't really say I'm surprised with the way this team played when there still was lots to play for. At the end of the season, when it basically is much you're done. I mean, I don't know if anyone was expecting much more. I mean, I watched the games on the weekend and just sort of like, yeah, this is pretty much what I expected. They're going up against way better teams that have a lot to play for. And these guys have been playing like they've been done for a very, very long time. So listen, I don't know if we should have been expecting anything, but as I said, I mean, just to sit here and talk about Dave Lowry, I mean, yeah, no kidding, everyone. Like everyone's watching these games. There hasn't been any improvements there. But if you listen, I personally don't think, and I mean, fill us in the chat on where you're at. I mean, I think you could bring in Scotty freaking Bowman right now on the Winnipeg Jets bench. And I'm not sure that this group that so many of us, including myself, was very high on going into this season and expect that they're going to turn into a juggernaut in the National Hockey League.
Yeah, and just, before we get to Joe, it's funny watching, some of the games, and it just seems like we're watching the same game. The first game, the Jets don't show up early on, and, Connor Helbig doesn't bail them out, and they lose. And the second game was, the Jets actually got off to a pretty good start. They got a lead against a good team, like we saw against Colorado, like we saw against Toronto. And you think, okay, can they hang on and win? But no, of course, Tampa, I thought, I was joking to everyone at my dinner on Saturday. Oh, Tampa, the Jets are up 4-2 against Tampa. And everyone's like, oh, wow, that's pretty awesome. My God, don't worry. It's
go live bet the Lightning now.
Yeah. I didn't think though, I thought the Lightning would have taken the lead in the third period, but or tied it up in the third. It was the second. They couldn't even hold on to the lead for the last couple minutes there. 4-2 lead, and Tampa made it 7-4. And I mean, those three games, they have the lead against these good teams, and you've been saying all season, you got to play a full 60 minutes, and weren't able to close it out. And you have a couple games this year: Minnesota, Colorado, Toronto, Tampa, against some really good teams, and you're giving up 7 spot. You're giving up a 6 spot against Florida, Minnesota, Colorado. I mean, tough to win when you're consistently giving up, beat the good teams, when you're giving up, 5 to 7 goals over and over.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, it's God knows we could probably go back and just basically take clips of openings to shows earlier in the season and put it in on somewhat of a medley and just play it. You can just kick back for the first 20 minutes because none of this is new. Listen, we're going to bring in Scooch. I'm looking forward to having Joe on the program to talk about this. Hey, before we do that, do you want to give a big thanks and a shout out to our friends over at Wallace & Wallace, our newest sponsor here on the program. They are Winnipeg's fencing and overhead door specialist. You've seen their fences and trucks all over the city. Wallace & Wallace has been serving residential and commercial customers since 1946. If your property needs the security and protection of a new fence, or if winter's done a number on your old one, give them a call. Vinyl, ornamental, welded wire, chain link, or wood, they've got the right fence for you. And if it's time to replace your garage door, they also have Winnipeg's largest selection of overhead garage doors. Give them a call at 452-2700. Ben, Charles, Mark, and the rest of the gang at Wallace & Wallace will arrange a time to come out and give you a free estimate. And you can also visit them at wallacefences.com or pop down to their showroom over on Lawson Crescent. Hey, Vita Health has lots going on this week, and you can always count on the best prices in town on Winnipeg's best selection of natural and organic supplements, beauty products, and groceries. Not to mention delicious lunch options like Vita Market salads, soups, sandwiches, and more. And the new falafel salad as well. And you can get your barbecue on with delicious lean bison steaks or chicken, all at that grab-and-go deli. If you can't make it into the store, visit their brand new fully shoppable website at myvita.ca to buy online or schedule a delivery with Instacart. Vita Health Fresh Market, 7 Winnipeg locations, including the newest store in Linden Ridge, and again, online at myvita.ca. And Andrew and the guys have lots going on heading into the summer over at F Apparel at 190 Smith Street. Don't be that guy that leaves his new suit to the last minute. You have an event this summer. If you want a fresh look, now's the time to come down and see the guys at F. They've got their new spring and summer fabrics in stock and ready. Over 250 new fabrics in every style, pattern, or color. And of course, incredible deals on weddings. If you're in a wedding party and you're wondering what to do, I was talking to a friend that had to go rent one at one of the big stores to be in the wedding party. It was just about as much as it would cost to get you a new custom suit at F. They've got a great deal as well, 15% off for wedding parties. Give them a call, pop down and see them at 190 Smith Street, or find out more online at fepapparel.com. All right, let's get into it. Monday with the Scooch. Let's welcome in the longtime sports director here in Winnipeg of Global and CKD, is Joe Pascucci. Joe, what's up? Hope you had a great long weekend.
Oh, well, take out the Jet games. It was not too bad, but the Jet games really put a sour disposition. I was so mad at how they played. So mad at the lack of fight. So mad that Corey Perry and Pat Maroon, get the better of the Jets. Like, why is Corey Perry owning the Jets? Going back to last season's playoffs and against Montreal, like he makes a joke out of the Jets, and they have no response for Corey Perry. They have no response. You can go back to that series against Calgary. Sam Bennett and Milan Lucic owned the Jets in that series. And what did those two do after that? Nothing. The Jets just are like, they're too soft for my liking. Like, it's just embarrassing to watch them get pushed around by guys like Corey Perry and Pat Maroon. And
let me ask you this, Joe, because I mean, God knows we've been talking, we've been having these same conversations after games all season long, just in different, maybe different tones after, a variety of different ways of losing games. But I mean, going back to, I still think it was midway through the 18-19 season. I mean, the second half of that season was a disaster. They went out against the first round of St. Louis. Yep. We all remember the infamous media availabilities that day, or it was obviously something's wrong. But I guess we're now 3 years later on. I know there's been a lot going on, but I mean, in your opinion, how did we get here to where we are today?
I was thinking about this over the weekend, and I think it goes back further. I think that there was no way they win that playoff series against Nashville if Pekka Rinne just plays average. He was so bad in that series. That's why the Jets won that series against Nashville. Remember, they lost 2 of their 3 home playoff games, right? I think they won the first one, but then every time they came back to they
were 3-1 in Nashville in that series, I'm pretty sure.
So and the only reason they won Game 7 was because Pekka Rinne was so bad at the start, and the Predators were down early. But I think, and then in the next series against Las Vegas, all the problems that we see now with this team, they were evident in that series. The Jets refused to chip the puck in deep. They won game 1, but Vegas was the better team for the final 2 periods. But in game 2, early on, Mark Scheifele tries to make a 3-foot pass to Blake Wheeler at the Vegas blue line. They intercept, they pass it up. Trouba's going off the ice because he's going for a line change, and Vegas goes in and scores. And that was the whole series. They continue since then. They continue to turn the puck over, whether it be at their blue line or the other team's blue line. And we've seen it this year where, they just refuse to dump it in, play dump and chase, put the pressure on the other team's defense. They try to make some silly little play at the blue lines, and it cost them, and they won't change. And as much as Nikolai Ehlers says the right things, he's as guilty as anyone of doing this. You look back to game 4 against Montreal last year. First goal, Jets are killing a penalty. Trevor Lewis can shoot it down the ice. No, he tries to make a play inside the Jets blue line. He gets turned over 1-0. Next play, the puck comes along the boards, and Ehlers chips it into the middle of the ice. Montreal gets it and scores. And Ehlers has done that again this year. He says the right things. Some games he plays the right way. But he's just as guilty as everyone who makes these dumb passes. And we have seen it since, I really took notice of it in that Vegas series. That's when I really took notice of it. Why do they continue to play that way? Just dump it in and go get it back. And when they can do that, then they're a very successful hockey team. But they refuse to do that. And it's just mind-boggling as to why, and as to why players who know the right way to play refuse to play the right way.
I'll suggest to you that Paul Stastny is one guy that you can pretty much count on doing the right things and for the most part playing the right way, as we just mentioned. I still can't believe. We just played it again. What he had to say after the game, and a few points over the last really 2 years. Paul Stastny has picked his spots. It's not like he does this over and over again, but towards the end of last season, he had that, basically calling the team out heading into, I believe, his 1,000th game. At which point they finally won and broke that 7-game losing streak and got some semblance of together before going out and stunning the Oilers in 4 straight.
Right. And how did they play against the Oilers?
Well,
exactly. Smart defensively, and they dumped the puck in.
They had one good week in about a period of 7, and it went right back to Montreal. But and
then they did the same thing against Montreal. They started turning the puck over, right? And they refused to change. And in that 4th game, they got down 2-0, and then Logan Stanley brings them back and ties it up in the 2nd period. But for the majority of the players, it's difficult just watching it on TV, but it looked like they didn't want to be there. In the overtime, Montreal was all over them. The Jets had basically put their arms up and say, hey, we want
the tea times were booked at that time, Joe. The tea times were booked. What did you think about what you just heard from Paul Stastny? This is game 75 of the season. And I just can't, you never hear that sort of thing talking about, focus, professionalism, dedication to what needs to be done. You'd rarely hear that. But it really seemed like he didn't hold much back as far as everything short of pounding his fist on the table.
He's speaking the truth, but, and it makes me kind of wonder, why did he come back and re-sign with this team? Because he saw a glimpse of that, back in 2018. But why did he come back? They traded for him, but he re-signed. He knows the problems with this team, yet he chose to return. And Remis mentioned about the Matt Hendricks, when they brought him back, because they had some problems in the dressing room. So there are some issues within that leadership group. Obviously, Blake Wheeler and Mark Scheifele. I'm not going to point any fingers at Josh Morrissey because his give a damn meter is way over. He cares. He's putting up a fight. He's doing his best, and he's just getting worn down by everything. And when you have a player like Neil Pionk as your most physical defenseman, where's Brendan Dillon? And then I look at, it's easy to bench Logan Stanley and Dylan Samberg, but Nate Schmidt has played terrible this season. Terrible. He's caused more goals than I think Logan Stanley has, but, he's not getting sat down. Why is Logan Stanley always the one that's being, basically benched, being made a healthy scratch? And why was Dylan Sandberg even taken out of the lineup? He didn't play that bad.
No, and it's one game. And, like to your point, I mean, having Sandberg out of the lineup on Saturday was a real head scratcher. But this goes to something that is another thing that was a mainstay of the Maurice era. And, many will say that this era has just continued. I mean, he left, but, and listen, Dave Lowry was on his staff and was an assistant coach at 9 a.m. and was, an interim head coach in the afternoon. So I don't know how much change anyone really expected to happen right away other than they need a new voice. Well, they weren't listening to Maurice, and it doesn't sound like they were listening to Dave Lowry very much either. But I mean, all of that, this is the same things that, have been an issue with this team for so long. And that's why I go back to thinking, again, big picture into next year. I mean, certainly they need to have a new approach, new people that are calling the shots. But I really do wonder what we're just talking about right now, that leadership group, the core, all those players to change. But back to the thing with putting Sandberg out and putting Logan Stanley back in, I mean, it has almost been like there are two classes of players. And there's always been that way. You have young guys that aren't, established NHLers, and they can go on a good run and they make a mistake and boom, they're out. Whereas guys that are, the veterans that, you're probably paying more than you have in, have a real lack of accountability, I guess is the best way that I could say it, Joe.
Yeah. I mean, and as great a season as Pierre-Luc Dubois has had, he takes way too many stupid penalties, and he gives the puck away just maybe not as much as Mark Scheifele was doing, but since Scheifele's been out of the lineup, he's been giving that puck away like crazy. I mean, and what happened there is Kyle Connor was taken off Dubois' line and put between Stastny and Ehlers. Was that kind of a side kind of move by Lowry to kind of punish Pierre-Luc Dubois for all his mistakes? Because it seems like he got demoted to the second line, and Stastny's now the number one center on the team. So, but there's just way too many mistakes. Two classes of players. Like if Svechnikov makes a mistake, he's sitting the next game. If you're a third or fourth liner and you make a mistake, you're being benched the next game. But if you're a top line player, you just get the next shift. Your minutes aren't cut. You still get your power play time. Nothing happens.
Joe Pascucci's with us here on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily, discussing the latest with the Winnipeg Jets as they head into the final half dozen games of the season. Is there anything to be gained in your mind from these final 6 games, Joe? I'd said, about 6 games ago, we were going to see who's committed to themselves, to their team, to each other. And I'll tell you what, the game in Montreal, I think, was the best example of that, with a team that actually played 60 minutes. They did a lot of those things that, now, again, they were doing against one of the worst teams in the National Hockey League. Take that for what it's worth. But you want to talk. Yeah, well, they won. They won for sure. They did those things that helped them win a hockey game. And then woefully unprepared and not ready to compete at a level that can even keep you in a game like against the Florida Panthers. And again, we talk a lot about the young players right now. I mean, so Dylan Sandberg goes in, has one rough night, and then is out. I don't know, is that beneficial for a young player right now? I don't get what they're doing.
No, it makes no sense. It makes no sense but I don't know if Lowry's hands are tied as to what kind of moves he can make as the interim head coach. Is he just trying to not ruffle any feathers of the veteran players? Can he ruffle the feathers of the veteran players? And the only moves he seems to make are to the third and fourth line guys. And, they had a better effort against Montreal, followed up by that really bad effort against Ottawa, which they won because Connor Hellebuck was brilliant.
I think Ottawa was first. They had that terrible first period, then came back, won that game, and then were a much better team in the second game on back-to-backs, when apparently that's so hard nights to be able to play those games.
And Lowry, he said, the funny thing was, he said that the reason he played Hellebuck in the second game because they were in a playoff race, right? Well, 2 weeks earlier, Hellebuck was brilliant against Buffalo. What happened the next night against Toronto? He doesn't play him. Well, that doesn't make sense. You just contradicted yourself. You didn't play Hellebuck the next night against Toronto after that Buffalo performance, but yet you go with him back-to-back nights in a game that, well, the season's already been lost. Like I told you, I think the last time I was on, they could only afford 10 losses, if they had any chance of making the playoffs. I think they're up to 13 now. So, I mean, it's just ridiculous. And then I get really frustrated when I keep hearing, I'm watching Hockey Night in Canada and they're doing their best to say the Jets have a chance to make the playoffs. Like, come on. We're not stupid. Like Jet fans are not stupid. What, are you trying to, help the ratings? Like,
it's been patronizing over the last little while. I mean,
oh my God. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing as a fan. I'm not on the day-to-day beat, so I can be the fan now, right? And it's embarrassing to just watch how they play, how they, just get pushed around. And I go back, Corey Perry and Pat Maroon are pushing the Jets around. Oh my God. Like Corey Perry was so bad, yet he owns the Jets, and he owns a lot of teams, but it just amazes me.
No, I know everyone was triggered last night seeing it, and it's that guy again.
They need some care. Well, I think, the culture, you're going to play that clip later from Kyle Connor about building culture.
It's never too early to start building a culture. What?
Jeez. That should have been done a few years ago. And
if anything, I think they have had a culture. I think that they have kind of realized that it's a culture that's killing the team and the organization for a long time. Hold on a second. Yeah. Joe, let's play this right now because I think Remis has that. So maybe if people didn't see that, Connor post game on Saturday, he spoke on a number of topics, but this comment I think caught a lot of people's attention.
Yeah, I mean, it's, whether we're in or out of the playoffs, 6 games, whatever it is we have left, I don't think it's too soon to, start building culture, having that right attitude in the group. So we're going to look to build on that in the next couple of games.
So 76 games in, let's find a good attitude going into the off season right now, Joe. I mean, it's stunning that this is where it sort of ended up, because I mean, I think even with an imperfect team and obviously a coaching staff that wasn't getting the most out of it, there was enough talent on this club. But, back to what you had said beforehand, I mean, it's quite clear. And I mean, we're guilty these days, of just focusing in on expected goals numbers and, a bunch of analytic stats, which are very helpful pieces of information and they can tell you a lot. But there are other pieces of good, successful hockey teams. And it comes with compete level, toughness, physicality, ability to respond to challenges, where the Jets are failing miserably in each and every category. And it's more difficult to put a number on those sort of things. But I think it's certainly, from my opinion, in addition to, this team has some elite skill and talent, and they've got a great goaltender. Other than that, when it comes to systems, when it comes to the way they play, when it comes to the preparation, when it comes to the commitment, they're failing on every single level, Joe.
I can't add to that. They are a failure, and it's not hard. Like, what's it? Stastny said, it's an easy game, right? You simplify the game, and all they have to do is play in straight lines, dump the puck in, put pressure on the other team's defense, and get the goaltender moving side to side, right? And take the shot when you have a shot. Like, what did Morgan Barron? Twice he was in the slot there. Is it Saturday night? I can't remember which game was it, the Florida or the Tampa game. He's got the puck in the slot and he tries to make a side door pass, to Pierre-Luc Dubois. Why? Take the shot. You're right in the perfect shooting, but they do that. They overpass. Like when they're on the power play, the Jets have the power play. The easiest way to defend the Jets power play is attack the guy with the puck because he has no support from any of his teammates. It's simple. That's been going on for 3-4 seasons now. It doesn't change. Then you put Mark Scheifele over on the left wing. He doesn't shoot the puck. You put Blake Wheeler down low. They've cut that off, right? So basically their only one play is to get the puck to Kyle Connor and hope his one-timer works. That's all they've got because they can't get the puck into the slot to Pierre-Luc Dubois, and they don't, and they seem to I don't have the stats on it, but they seem to hit the goaltender in the middle of his body a lot when they take a shot. They're not going for the corners; they're going square to the logo. I think they're
shooting for a rebound. I guess I'm not.
No, they shoot high.
Sure.
They don't shoot low. They shoot high. So it's the same old, and I've been watching it since that Vegas series, and I'm tired of it. I'm tired of watching the same thing, and it's not hard to fix, right? Put a little effort, play smarter defensively, get the puck out. It's not hard, as Stastny said. It's a simple game. You simplify the game, and the Jets just refuse to play the simple game, or they just refuse to work hard. And if you're a young player in this organization, I'm concerned that you realize that you're not getting your chance with this team, or the way that the team has been structured the last few years. You're not getting your chance. Billy Hinola should have been playing this season, right? Dylan Sandberg, of course, he had the injury at the beginning of the season, so that was tough. But Dylan Sandberg should have been playing, right? The only reason Logan Stanley got to play last year was because of injuries, and all of a sudden, oh my God, he can actually play in the NHL, right? Kyle Connor, remember they sent it back to the Moose. The only reason he got back was because of an injury, started scoring. It was like, oh, I guess we can't send him back down. Well, did you not know what you had, right? Or is that the Paul Maurice effect? And that's, I certainly do blame Paul Maurice for what's gone on with this team, how he was not able to motivate players to do the simple things. Right?
Listen, I believe this, and I don't know whether I've said this on the program before. I've certainly said it in off-air conversations with friends and talking on this topic. Maurice is a very, very smart man. Maurice has a ton of experience in this game. And when he got this opportunity, what was it, his fourth crack in the National Hockey League? He knew he wanted to make it last. And Paul Maurice became an absolute master of self-preservation. He's great at reading the room. Mark Scheifele had his 8-year contract. Blake Wheeler was getting the extension. Those were the guys. Here you go, gentlemen. This is your team. And I think he knew that as long as he was tied with those guys, he'd probably be around. Yeah. Up until... it obviously all ended. But let's get to the $1 million question, Joe. And this is maybe a multi-million-dollar question. Let's say we just transplanted you into the top office at TNSE and we're going into the off season. I think we've all agreed that we need a coach. What kind of a coach are you looking for right now? And in addition to what you're doing with the coaching staff, how significant will you try to change the core of this team and some key players?
Well, I'd want to get a verbal commitment, and I want to know from players like Mark Scheifele, are you part of the solution, or are you going to continue to be part of the problem? I want an answer.
Do you think you don't have that answer already?
I think, well, personally, I think Mark Scheifele's already asked for a trade, and that'll happen in the offseason.
Yeah, I don't think there's a player that needs a change of scenery in the league more than 55, to be perfectly honest.
And Blake Wheeler, and I've said in the past, I have seen him try to change this year. I have seen him try to change. And when I used to be covering the Jets on a day-to-day basis, the two players that I could sense that cared about the team and cared about winning and losing were Brian Little and Blake Wheeler, right? And I think Blake Wheeler still cares, but, something has gone on with his attitude, especially towards the media and especially somewhere his place within this team, because he let his play or his ego get the better of him somewhere along the line. I think it's changed this season a bit. It's come back, but I said before that Mark Scheifele had a sense of entitlement in his game. I've seen that change with Blake. So what would I do? Definitely would change the coach. I would not want a Tortorella type coach, but I want someone who will enforce a disciplined style of play, right? And get the players to play it. Not be so strict and, like old school, but Darryl Sutter, he's old school. He got them to play the right way, but someone who is tough, but fair. And, if you play well, you get rewarded. If you don't, there are ways to be punished instead of being made a healthy scratch. You get your ice time cut a little bit or something, but players have to be made accountable. Now they have to get the younger players in here. Pascal Vincent, obviously, he knows pretty much everybody in this organization, the younger players and most of the veteran players. So I think that, he's the cheaper option, because if you bring in an Alain Vigneault, right, he'll command more money, or Claude Julien, he'll command more money. Does True North bring Randy Carlyle back? Right?
Oh, can you imagine Carlisle with this group?
Would he come back as GM or as coach? Right? Like,
you want to talk about a powder keg?
He's tight. Well, Daryl Sutter
would be a nuclear
back.
bomb. That would be a nuclear bomb in the dressing room. And who knows?
Maybe we need a nuclear bomb in that dressing room. We need something.
I'll say one thing. That would be fascinating if that was the case. I'm not sure whether that's the path to maybe turning this whole thing around. But
what would you say about Bruce Boudreau, though? Right? What did he do? He just went in there and he changed everything with the Vancouver Canucks.
And apparently they're thinking about moving on from him and hiring Paul Maurice, if you
exactly. And you know what? All the power to the Vancouver Canucks if they want to hire Paul Maurice. Short term, he'll get the team. Well, the team's already been turned around by Boudreau. So I wouldn't mind having, Bruce around here. He seems to get the best out of his players for 2 to 3 seasons, and then you move on.
He'd be a lot of fun to have around. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah,
it would be a stark departure from what we've got right now.
I know it's crazy, but like Mark Chipman's going to hire. They always hire somebody they know, right? And who do they know? They know Vigneault, right? They know Carlisle. They know Pascal Vincent. They also know Scott Arniel, but it's not going to be Scott Arniel.
I would suggest that in this situation, there is no need to just run towards the guy that you know.
But that's how it works in hockey. It's always the guy you know.
Yeah, well, unfortunate. Maybe it's time to take a bit of a different path, considering where this path has brought them. Joe, listen, great chat as always. Let's do this again soon. And certainly at the end of the year, we got 6 games left. We'll hear what the team has to say. We'll be doing a big breakdown for that entire week. So we'll look forward to getting you back on that week, hopefully, and chopping a little up as we head into the off season at the end of 82.
All right. Looking forward to it. And also looking forward to hearing Jeff coming up in a few minutes.
It's going to be great. Thanks so much, Scooch. Give him a follow on Twitter, folks, at Pascucci015, our great friend Joe Pascucci. And make sure you're following him, because the greatest Jets historical content on the internet continually fires out of Joe's always entertaining feed. Yes, that's right. The rumors are true. Jeff Hamilton is coming up in just a minute. Hey, before we do that, I want to give a big shout out to our friends at Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge, who are getting ready for the upcoming season. We have listen, it's going to be their busiest summer ever because of what's happened the last couple years, but there are still a few windows in the season where you can make a booking, an incredible once-in-a-lifetime trip for friends and family, and one of the best corporate outings you can possibly have. If you want to find out more about Aikens Lake, just, basically you'll be on the water less than 2 hours away from Winnipeg. Find out more online at aikenslake.com, as well as I think they're looking for another guide and someone to work at the dock. If you've got a young person, maybe finishing up university, dream job for young people. So find out more, aikenslake.com, and you can hit up Pitt on Twitter as well, at Aikens Lake. Of course, Culligan Water, great sponsors of ours and the go-to people for all things water here in Winnipeg for over 65 years. They've got it all: water softeners, filters, bottled water coolers, whole home systems, drinking water systems, and city-wide water delivery services, as well as commercial and industrial water products and solutions for your business. 1200 Sargent Avenue, 694-5180, or find out more on all the great Culligan products and services online at drinkculligan.com. Donnie and the guys at Manitoba Battery have a lot going on right now, as well as they transition from winter to summer. The annual battery farm sale is on right now until April 22nd. Couple examples of the great deals: Ford and Chevy half-ton batteries on for only $79.50, and 900 amp top post utility batteries for $72.50. Just a few of the great deals that you can take advantage of. Again, if you are calling for the farm sale and you're out of town, phone orders are encouraged, and they'll have it ready for you when you come to pick it up at 1026 Logan Avenue. And for all of you city slickers that are getting ready to get out to the cottage or work on some products outside of work hours, good news. As of today, Manitoba Battery has extended summer hours from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And of course, you'll get, and they also deliver same day if you order by 3 p.m. And they'll also pay you cash for your old battery when they get there. It's a complete time saver, and you'll save significantly more than you would at Costco or Canadian Tire. Save time and money with Manitoba Battery, 1026 Logan Avenue, or go to manitobabattery.com for details. And hey, quickly before we get to Jeff, Canada soccer gear has started to come in. The new Canada We Can 22 shirts that you saw the Canadian men's team wearing when they qualified for the World Cup are in right now. Truckload of more Canada soccer gear is coming in right now to Royal Sports. In addition, tons of Blue Jays gear right now. Jets, Bombers, merchandise from every one of the big leagues, Raptors as well, as they're in the playoffs, and soccer, baseball, softball, bikes, fitness. Get ready to dominate spring and summer, however short it may be, over at Royal Sports, 750 Pembina, and you can check them out online on Instagram at Royal Sports Pembina for their latest merchandise drops and deals. All right, let's bring in Jeff Hamilton joining us from Parts Unknown today. Always great to have Hammer on the show. Now, we will get to the Jets in a minute. A couple other things I want to get into Jeff with first. But, hey, how's it going? How's the weekend? How have your travels been?
Hey, not too bad. I think the last time I was on here, I was talking about extending my trip out and getting through this storm. Well, the storm didn't live up to its end of the deal, so I only got a few extra days. So I was home for the whole weekend. But here I am, new work week. Favorite part of the week, being able to join you on this show. So let's get at it.
Well, I appreciate it. And listen, I mean, we will get to some of the things that are honestly more trivial. Jets, Bombers off season. But this is the first time you've been on the program since the horrifying news of the charges to Kelsey McKay. I bring this up to you, Jeff. Obviously, I think most people know you worked for years on the Graham James piece of Staying on Our Game. And obviously I spoke with you off air when this news broke. I mean, in a lot of ways, I mean, I imagine you looking at this, there many similarities to some of the things that you covered in the world of junior hockey 3 decades ago actually happening now within our midst in the last 10 years in minor football here in the city.
Yeah, I mean, I had a bit of a thread shortly after. I know people, I was getting some private messages, some public messages asking me to weigh in on it. And certainly my efforts will not end with a Twitter thread, but I thought it was important to, at least say some things based on my experience in this sphere. Unfortunately, I've had, fortunately in a lot of ways too, I've had the opportunity to dig into these kind of crimes, to get a better understanding of how they happen, and ultimately help educate the public. The unfortunate part is that it usually takes things like the Graham James, that example, or the most recent one here with Kelsey McKay, to really get that opportunity. This will be a long road for the survivors. This is just the beginning. I think there's certainly credit goes out to those who have come forward, and more, I imagine, will come forward in the coming days, weeks here as investigators continue to work on this case. But certainly credit to those people who have come forward. The bravery, it's just immeasurable. The situation, that the pain that they have probably dealt with, they certainly have dealt with. In the last decade or so here, it's unimaginable. And I think one of the things that, lots will be said, lots will be discussed over time here. But I think what needs to be understood, just from a basic public standpoint, is that, I still get some of this today. I certainly got a lot of this over the Graham James research, is that, a lot of people don't understand how something like this can happen. And so, we could talk about this forever, but simply put, these kind of sexual predators are, incredibly intelligent in their grooming, skills, and their ability to, create, maintain, foster relationships with their players. And a lot of people ask the question, well, how can a physical hockey player or a big tough football player fall victim to, this kind of manipulation? And the answer, quite frankly, is incredibly easy. based on a lot of different things that these predators point out on individuals. And that, my point in all this is to say that I think as a public, we need to, take the opportunity collectively to better understand how these things happen, to provide empathy for those players who, have a crazy journey here over the next weeks and months, and certainly have had a crazy journey over years, just to better understand, do your part to better understand and not simply dismiss, things to be, what seem to be black and white when there's plenty of gray involved. So, I'm certainly, I don't know if looking forward is the right words, but I'm certainly going to be doing my best work in, helping flush out this story, provide perspective just through my expertise, but ultimately gain some much needed answers here. As I think you mentioned, Huss, it's one thing to kind of have this, happen in the 80s, 90s. It's a whole other story to look at this new time frame, and from 2004 to 2011, and we know just based on history that usually what you're caught for is not your first your first crime. So I think there's still plenty to be discussed here, and we'll see what happens here. But getting answers from the places where the public deserves is certainly my priority number one.
I spoke with a number of people in the football community over the course of the last few days over the weekend. And, people that have kids in the program are, horrified, as you can imagine. I spoke to a couple guys from the Bombers that, were beside themselves with it. And again, it hits so close to home. I do wonder, just in the short term, what, if anything, changes? Because of, for instance, what's happened 3 decades ago. It's not like there aren't protocols and things that have been put in place over the last 3 decades to try to avoid this. And yet here it is, was one of the most successful coaches in all of football here in Manitoba that was involved with the Team Manitoba program, was doing it. One of the things that came out, though, and I got to give Gordy Wilson a stick tap for this. He did a thread, and I guess he runs the Rifles. So obviously those people are really, are shocked by this and hurt by this because of, how many of those players maybe even came through that program. But he talked about coaches having players over at their residences. And he said that this should just simply be outlawed, should be banned. Is that a common occurrence right now, Jeff? In some sports, or how is that not already a rule? Just basically considering what's happened before, is it just different situations with different individuals and how they run their programs and how much they're able to get away with?
Yeah, it's a good question. There's clearly rules against having parties, having players, or in this case students, or both, over to your house. There's lots of, the reality is whether it was the Graham James stuff or things that prop up, in the years since, are always reminders, right? And I think when you do look at some of these situations, few and far between involve, male coaches on male players. So a lot of it could simply be, yes, these are in place, but, this is just a football coach, right? This is just a guy who, it's just guys coming over to watch the football game, or it's just, there's not a huge age difference. So maybe, being relatable, it's a lot easy to be relatable. It'd be a whole other story, obviously. Think about it. If the rumors would have included, and I just use this as an example, but like a volleyball coach inviting his female, players over, that would have been jumped on immediately. Would have been questioned immediately, just based on, your mind can go there quickly of maybe some of the maltreatment that could be involved with those kind of relationships. I think it's much harder, and speaks to the education, the further education that we need to provide the public in understanding, the relationships aren't always, male on female, or, female on male. They're often, in some cases, obviously this case, same-sex situations. And maybe it's just easier to justify or easier to dismiss, as we've heard. I found it interesting. A lot of people seem to think, well, all these rumors, as reporters, how are you not cluing in on them? Well, I can tell you personally, I never heard a single rumor about this, and I have a hard time thinking that a lot of reporters that cover high school football would have known about this too. And if they would, I think there is a responsibility. It certainly opens up a can of worms, in the sense that I think people now, and this is the kind of the angle I've always taken in my investigation, is it's easy to kind of go on the witch hunt, right? It's easy to, try to identify who would have known things, who should have known things, and point blame, when I think the biggest thing that we can do as reporters, or just in general as a public, is to give, and again, I don't use this lightly, I don't overuse it, give people maybe a benefit of the doubt as we try to figure out where, some of the mess ups were, or where do we have examples where someone could have done more? Why didn't they do more, right? It's easy to pinpoint somebody and say, well, why didn't you do this, or why didn't you do that? When you look back, the policies weren't really in place, or weren't in place at all, to not just identify a complaint, but to flush out a complaint, right? I mean, a lot of these instances, you don't have to look very far to the recent report from the NHLPA. I mean, I thought that was absolutely laughable, that report. I mean, it ultimately looked at the low standard that the NHLPA had to take these complaints, to again flush out the complaints, to identify them, and then base their ruling under subpar policies, right? That they to suggest this isn't systemic. Well, the idea that in 2010 or 2011, we don't have things in place to allow people a safe environment, or don't have the to give the details, to give the proper details of a complaint, or we don't have the wherewithal to provide that environment to ask further questions. A lot of these instances were dealt with, well, until a victim comes forward and tells me exactly what happened, who am I, to question somebody, or who am I to bring attention to an issue, when in reality, if these policies are in place that outline the incidents that protect all parties, because there is that concern, right? There is a concern that you jump to things right away, and maybe that, someone being accused isn't guilty of the crimes they're being accused. I mean, that's why these policies need to be in place, to ensure that everybody's privacy is being taken care of, but more importantly, to identify and to take what might seem like just an off-the-cuff comment, or a complaint with sparse details, the proper avenues to ensure that things aren't happening. Because you can look at, I absolutely believe that once we dig into this, once we find out all the details, that there will be moments in time, right? There will be teachers who certainly knew about the rumors, that it was common knowledge, whether that be at Churchill or at Vincent Massey, and why weren't things done, or why weren't questions asked? I mean, that also, I mean, again, on the witch hunt kind of angle here, it's easy to kind of point fingers and go, well, why didn't you do this, or why didn't you do that? And again, were those policies in place? Were those people set up to not fail? And if they were, well, then there's bigger questions to be asked. But certainly in instances like these, I mean, it's easy to get angry, and I think angry, that those feelings are important, because you want people to open up, you want people to want to talk about these things, you want people to be enraged so that they don't happen, because that anger turns into positive energy in changing programs. And I think this is just the latest reminder of why we need to look at what's in place, from the school division, from different sports teams. I mean, the other thing too is to understand that power dynamic, right? You don't have to be 16, 17 years old. You can you can be manipulated at 18, 19, and when that power dynamic's there, that coaching athlete relationship, which in a lot of cases is incredibly sacred. You'll talk to a lot of high performance athletes, and the relationships with their coaches, the trust required is so intense that the average person might question a relationship, one that is completely professional, one that is completely healthy for that athlete's needs. But again, this is just it really is an opportunity to shine a light on something that a lot of people in our society don't want to talk about, or certainly don't have the education for. And again, unfortunately, it takes instances like this and brave souls to come forward to get that dialogue going.
Well, exactly. And I think some people in the chat were kind of wondering about who exposed this. I mean, it's the survivors. I mean, these people came forward, and I mean, this was not something that I think was certainly on my radar, your radar, anyone's radar, until, the Winnipeg police did a press conference last week at noon announcing the charges to Kelsey McKay. So this certainly is not far from the last time we'll talk about this, but I did want to get your thoughts on, what we've learned in a very short period of time. And obviously this story will continue. Hey, just staying on football from something far more trivial, but of interest to Winnipeg Blue Bomber fans. Friday, after we finished the show, Jalen Saunders signs with the Bombers. I know we met the media today. I mean, this this could be a huge signing for a team at the receiver position, but there are some questions over his health. That's a great year with Zach Collaros. I mean, what did you think about that? What does it tell you about the season going forward? And I'm not sure if you were on the call today. What did we hear from Jalen Saunders as far as coming and trying to continue his career in blue and gold with the Champs?
I was on the call today, and so I think it's at the very least, a very intriguing signing, just because you don't, what Jalen Saunders has done in this league, but you don't know if he's still capable of doing it. I mean, this guy hasn't touched a football field since 2018. When he was injured during Labor Day weekend with the Ticats, and again hasn't played a game ever since. And not just that, but he got in a car accident in this time last year, a little bit earlier than what we're seeing now, just the start of spring, which derailed a potential comeback in 2021, which he was all ready to do with the Ottawa Red Blacks. Well, they've obviously moved on. I mean, he was a free agent in February. So there were these 2 months here where he was capable of signing, and now he's with the Bombers. So, clearly he says he's in full health. I think that's the number one thing. You have to take him for his word, but we'll really see, what happens in a few weeks here when training camp gets underway in the middle of next month. But, he certainly is a guy that you have to be intrigued of. I mean, if you think about it, look at some of the stats he put up with the Ticats. I mean, with not a lot of time, the guy jumped in and became a marquee player, a star player, if you will. At least that's the way he's being dubbed. But whether those star qualities are still in play for a guy who again went through a very serious car accident, messed up his leg and has torn his ACL in recent years, you obviously have to be curious on what he's capable of doing come game time. But certainly an intriguing piece to add to the Bombers receivers, especially when you look at the loss of Kenny Lawler and how they're going to make up that big time attack, and adding to guys with Greg Ellingson. We'll see what he can do. It seems like when you look at his career, he's an exceptionally great player to have as a number 2 option, so long as he's not getting the double teams. If somebody else is attracting that, as we saw in Hamilton with Luke Tasker, and actually I think it was an injury to Terrence Tolliver that got him into the lineup, but he was able to exploit that kind of one-on-one coverage. And if he's anywhere near where he was in 2018, certainly could be a scary piece for the Bombers this season.
He certainly had a monster season. I know Remis, he was a mainstay on the DraftKings lineup there for a few weeks, a few seasons ago, when he was doing what he was doing with the Hamilton Tiger Cats. And just quickly before we move off the Bombers, we're less than 4 weeks away from training camp. I would imagine at some point very soon, we're going to get one of those press releases from DC that says the Bombers have signed, and it's going to be like 20 dudes deep. There still is a number of players that they need to add to the rosters, and certainly rookie camp and the draft will be a big part of that coming up in the next couple of weeks.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can't bring everybody back, as evident from the Bombers roster, but you can bring back a large chunk. So, I mean, there's obviously going to be guys that have moved on to NFL opportunities. That's what happens when you're one of the best teams, if not the best team in the league, as we've seen with the Bombers the last 2 seasons. You're going to lose guys, but the good news for Winnipeg clearly is that they've been able to bring back, a large chunk of those players, certainly a large chunk of the leadership core. What will things look like with Andrew Harris not in the locker room? I mean, these are all obviously intriguing storylines that we'll explore, next month. But I think you have to trust, the scouting staff here. You have to trust that they're going to find guys that they were capable of finding, last season. The good news too with that, I mean, if you look at the vacancies, if you will, or the holes, they're at positions where you do lean on your scouting staff to sign, and usually are the easiest to fill. So I also think another interesting one too will be who plays safety, right? I don't think Brandon Alexander is going to be up and ready to go. And, with that many moving pieces in the secondary, that's going to be certainly an area of focus here through training camp to try to get that chemistry going. You'll have guys like Brandon Alexander coaching up and helping guys in the classroom and dealing with some of those the importance of communication and whatnot. But I think that if you're looking at an area where the Bombers might be a little bit susceptible, I think that's one of the few spots is the secondary.
All right, Jeff Hamilton of the Winnipeg Free Press is with us here on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. We're going to get to the Jets, and listen, I usually do Breezy Bend golf reports, and shout out to Jordan Spieth for his big round yesterday to win at Harbour. But I think for the next little while, our Jets reports can be brought to you by Breezy Bend, because 6 games left and it's tea times for Winnipeg. of course, whether you're have an extended off season or just look like to play when you have the opportunity, no better golfing home for you and your family than Breezy Bend. They've done incredible work to the course over the last couple of years, both on the 18 holes as well as in the clubhouse, the beautiful patio. Just such an amazing place to play. Just cannot wait to get out there. Although, well, sooner the better for us. It would have been nice if the hockey team was unavailable for a little while longer, but we know where that situation is. If you want to find out more about Breezy Bend, waiting list, other opportunities, give Corey Johnson a call at the golf course, or you can find out more online at breezybend.ca. Hey, talk to a few friends. I had a bunch of people asking me about Teslas that had heard me talking about her on the show. Listen, I don't know a lot about them other than I've been in a few, and they are incredible vehicles. But if you're thinking about potentially a move to an electric vehicle, I know the people that can help you out, and that is the gang over at Not Auto Corp. They've been the leaders in Tesla sales for about a decade here in Winnipeg, have a number on the lot as well, and a stock that grows by the day. They've got the Tesla Experience program going on right now to teach you everything about the move to electric. And regardless of what kind of vehicle you're looking for, why not get into the car of your dreams at an incredible price with the help of the Not team, Waverly and McGillivray, and online at not.ca. And cheers to our friends at Little Brown Jug. The tap room is open. It's not quite time to enjoy a few Little Brown Jugs on the patio, but that will be happening very soon. If you want to get the great taste of Little Brown Jug, order a $19.19 at your favorite bar or restaurant. You can pick up all the Little Brown Jug offerings at your local liquor mart or beer store, or best bet, pop down to the tap room on William Avenue. Try them out yourselves. Pick up all the beer that you want. And again, Little Brown Jug does deliver citywide Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. You can order online and find out more at littlebrownjug.ca. All right, Hammer, let's get to the Jets. I can't say I was at all surprised with what we saw on the weekend. A few extra days in Florida going into that game against the high-powered Panthers. That had a bad loss and an over written all over it. That's exactly what happened. And then you follow it up, getting a few on the board early. I think they scored 4 goals in their first 11 shots. And then the Tampa Bay Lightning flexed, and the Jets looked about as lost as they have been all season long. Somewhat par for the course, as I said, not surprised. But what was surprising was some of the most frank and frankly jaw-dropping comments I've heard from members of the team. Paul Stastny, Nikolai Ehlers, Kyle Connor saying it's never too late to start building a culture. I mean, whatever about what happened on the rink. I mean, I think we sort of expected that, and we've seen it before. What did you think about what was coming out of the post games with some of the more prominent members of the Winnipeg Jets?
Different week, same question. I mean, it really is not surprising. I mean, you can call it refreshing, you can call it disappointing. I mean, you look at some of the culture comments, and what is it, game 73, 74, 75. I mean, that's just not what fans want to hear, but very much likely what this team needs to hear. I mean, you had Joe on earlier. He was dropping hammers. Like, do I need to play the good cop on this? I don't know, but I think the reality is that we're not going to get the answers that we're all dying to get until the end of the year. And I mean, it's our job as reporters to flush those answers out, to challenge answers, to try to get the fans, answers that they've been desperate for months, if not the entire season, just because of this team's just been, vastly, underperforming week in and week out. The other thing too is that I don't think we're going to get all the answers that we want until we start into the off season. We're not, I don't think we're going to, what changes are going to be made, what changes from, because I think at this point, when you spend the salary cap and your expectations are as high as the expectations were for the Jets heading into this season, you have to do an audit on everything. And I don't think necessarily the time for an audit is right now, or at least probably not for them right now, as they are trying to, focus on winning games and clinging to this very, very, very slim opportunity of making the playoffs. But I mean, that needs to start sooner than later, and it needs to be identified what this future looks like. And, I'll go back to one of the questions I brought up in the past here is that, what if the ownership here views this year as an anomaly? What if they look at everything that happened with this team from, whether it's a coaching change, whether it's, scheduling, whether it's COVID, whether, all these excuses we've heard throughout the season. What if they
time zones?
bought into
Don't
that?
forget time zones.
Yeah, don't forget time zones. Jets are the only ones that fly out of the Central. So, that's what's going to be interesting to me, is because I'm just very curious what the, what the brain trust is thinking. And I do think that, Mark Chipman needs to come out after this season is done and address those issues, right? Address a plan, because I don't think you can hide behind the scenes, expect, fans to, put up, hard-earned money to pay for, watch this team and not get answers from the top. And, we know that Kevin Cheveldayoff isn't the one that necessarily gives the most detailed of answers, but at the same time, I think we need to go higher, right? We need to go higher with the breakdown, or, to figure out some of the issues here and really to have people answer for them. And so, I think we've gotten to that point just with the restlessness of fans and wanting the answers. But, it's just going to be, and we've talked about this before, I felt like, the worst case scenario was going to be whatever the last 5-10 games being meaningless, right? Because it's just going to be painful interview after painful interview post game if this team continues to rack up the losses against good clubs. And really, what can you really say? Can you, are you supposed to, turn on your teammates, with games remaining, having to go back there? Because if you're expecting that, that's not going to happen. But some of the quotes we have heard have certainly not just hinted, but directly pointed to some way bigger issues. So certainly lots of questions, few answers that I'm hoping we can, as a media group here can get for fans, after what's been I can imagine extremely frustrating year.
Well, I'll say this, listen, for the record, I don't think that will happen. I don't think that they are looking at this season as, a one-off or really difficult season. And that, I think it's been abundantly clear on multiple levels that there is some serious things that are wrong with this club. And you can talk about the coaching, you can talk about the culture, as Kyle Connor mentioned, you can talk about the commitment of particular players, you can talk about the locker room, and you can talk about the leadership. All of those things I think have been an F for the most part this season. So listen, just knowing the where the organization is at when it comes to season tickets. I think this is going to be, I will be stunned if there's not significant changes in a number of different levels. And I guess if to your point, if they did look at it that way, they'll have to come out and sell that. And I think that'll be just about impossible to sell to the fan base. And that's a big reason why I don't think that is going to happen. But I think, as far as, finding out, how they address it, anyone can say whatever they want in an interview. And I've got a ton of respect for Mark Chipman. He has done things, I think, always with the best interest of the team and the city in mind. Just sometimes it doesn't work. And, you can respect people that you work with, you can be with them, but at a certain point, you have to make tough decisions. I know he's made a number of those tough decisions in other areas of the organization at times before, and I certainly expect those will happen this year. But the real answers we're going to get, Jeff, is not anything in a press conference. It is going to be in the actions of the organization and how they go forward. And, whether we get some sort of clarity on changes that are happening right after the season, whether it takes a little while, I'm really not sure. But the bottom line is, more than any other offseason I can ever remember since this team came back, there needs to be significant change and aggressive moves to, erase so much of the disappointment and the baggage I think that this organization has with it. And I think that the only way to get over that is, making some big changes, whether it comes to big trades, moving some of the players that have been part of this core for a long time. And then when it comes to the coach, we often just lean on guys that we know, guys that have been successful before, that for whatever reason are available. I know Joe kind of leans on the fact that, many hockey people, if you will, lean on people that they know. But I do really wonder about, regardless of what the name is, the type of person that needs to come in, whether they do know the group, whether they have I'd prefer a guy that has absolutely no connection to anyone, to be perfectly honest, and is hired on the merits of what he's able to come in and do to hopefully enact his plan, the reason why he was hired, with the goal of establishing an accountability and a new culture of the team, and not leaning on people that have been big parts of what got the Winnipeg Jets to this point.
Yeah, and I think you can say that, right down to the players. I mean, I think you need to identify, what the shortcomings are, who wants to be here, what vision they have. I mean, you mentioned the leadership group. Is it time to find a new leadership group? Is it, that speaks to players, that speaks to the management, that speaks to coaching. I mean, could we be facing like a clean sweep here? I just don't see the Jets doing that. In that, I think it's too much to bite off, right? Like, it's too much to change. You can't change everybody, but how high can you go, right? I mean, I think at the very least, something needs to give with the roster. This team clearly has defensive deficiencies. They thought they addressed the defensive group. Clearly clearly this team needs a true number one, it's easier said than done. I think Josh Morrissey's had a terrific season, but this team needs another Josh Morrissey, if not better, and to help out that group. And if it takes trading a Mark Scheifele, or if it takes trading some key pieces up front, maybe that's something they do. I don't know how this coaching staff survives, and that's just using this league's history. Yeah, logic is a great word for it. Like this team's history, or this league's history. Not a lot of coaches survive what this coaching staff has survived. So, there's certainly movement there. And then whether or not, this team is ready to bid adieu to their general manager, which, may have seemed impossible thinking early on in the season, has to at least been thought of throughout these last few months, and what the answers are, right? Because it's as much as the GM's job to create a culture of players as it is a coach to instill it and to get the best out of the group. So if that's just the breakdowns, just unfortunately seem to be at every turn. So how do you address all of it? I don't know if you can, but that's also not, I don't get paid enough to provide those answers. And there's people, fortunately, that will have to make those decisions. And it's interesting because I go back to my one of my original points there about how much they've been talking about next season. As they continue to cling on to this, these faint hopes of making the playoffs. And if there isn't already maybe like the start of a plan or chats of who could be potentially filling this void. I know you asked Joe what kind of head coach. You've asked me in the past what time of head coach the Jets need to go after, or what would work with their current roster. And I think we all agree that someone who can come in here and offer a kick in the pants would certainly be a benefit, but they can't just be a loud voice, right? I mean, it's not just if you want to look at the leadership groups, whether they need to align with Blake Wheeler or the Mark Scheifele. It's just athletes as a whole, younger athletes as a whole, don't take to necessarily negative attention. So you need to have a guy who, if he's gonna go in there and be a yeller or try to play tough love, he's also got to be a good communicator and a good coach. And a guy like Daryl Sutter has proven to do that in Calgary, where he's a no-nonsense guy, but when it comes to the X and O's and generating possession, he's among the best coaches out there. So as much as you'd like to, fans would like to have a guy come in and, start saying his way and trying to create a new culture here that starts with accountability, you also have to have the systems and vision to back things up. So again, it's not an easy decision. It's not an easy pick. It's not like these guys are out there, ready for the plucking, all looking for a job. But, again, it's not, there's people in place that get paid decent money to find these solutions, and it'll be up to them to find somebody who can strike a balance between, having that no nonsense attitude and accountability, but also instilling a system that works not just for, not just hockey, a system that works in hockey, but works for this group of players that they can get behind. Because if you look at games like Tampa Bay, you look at certain things, recent games where it's like, there's that game against the Colorado Avalanche where the Jets were up 3-0, ended up losing 6-3. It's those teams are able to not panic, revert to a system, maintain it, and then it works. The Jets just don't have that. They don't have that identity. They don't have that game that they can fall back on. And somebody, first and foremost, needs to come in and create that and get that buy-in.
Yeah, listen, I think a coach and maybe a good psychiatrist might be a nice addition to the hockey club as well. One thing that concerns me right now, and I'm interested in your perspective on this, is where the younger players are and how they feel about where things are going. And again, things will change, presumably, if many of these changes that we're discussing are made. And I think, you really need to have a legitimate fresh start with a fresh voice, some fresh players, and to move on from all of this right now. But, whether you're a younger player like a Sandberg who was taken out of the lineup after one rough game, whether you're Ville Heinola, whether you're David Gustafsson, who has, been called up twice, injured quickly, and has been stuck around, but maybe no one more important than Pierre-Luc Dubois. We've all talked about the fact that he seems to like it here, and certainly the goal of the organization is to sign him to a long-term deal, and I think that is imperative for the organization to do moving forward. But man, watching these games and hearing what some of the other players are saying after the games, you wonder what must he be thinking right now as to, geez, is this a place where I want to commit to, a long-term deal, and what it will take to have a player like that feel confident that this is the right place for him to go and play the most important prime years of his National Hockey League career.
When speaking to a guy like Pierre-Luc Dubois, I think there are some things in the Jets' favor. I don't think this is a guy that needs to play in a quote-unquote sexy market that, has beautiful weather. I think he really does enjoy playing, in front of a passionate fan base. He's seen the best and the worst of this fan base here in Winnipeg, right? You compare last season to this season, and it's pretty much night and day, and that's never bothered him. There's obviously the benefit of him being a restricted free agent, so he doesn't have, a ton of, leverage, if you will. He can play the whole Trouba, route or cop route and just kind of play out those year by year and get his raises. But I don't see that. But I also think he's going to need, like any player who would be, sought after and, viewed as the future in a leadership group. He's in a position to ask for those, ask those questions. What is the future of this organization? What are we going to do to get out, really get some kind of, some kind of assurances that we're headed in the right direction. And so I don't think that's going to be a tough one for him. But even when you ask about younger guys, I really do think it depends on which younger guy you're referring to. If you're talking about younger guys like Pierre-Luc Dubois and Nikolai Ehlers and certainly the people under contract, there's not much you can do there. But I also think if you're a younger guy trying to climb in to the roster, and I'm not going to name names and to suggest anybody who I would know would be frustrated, but you could only imagine some of the guys deeper in the lineup not feeling like there is a chance to get up there and to earn ice time. We've seen, and I've mentioned this in the past, the hierarchy is real, right? There's some guys that have way longer leashes, and that makes sense. that's on every team. There's going to be, you don't treat every player the exact same way, but the discrepancy from where you treat some of the, the higher end players or the higher paid players versus, those players who are lesser paid is palpable here in Winnipeg, or at least feels to be that way. And I would be curious on what some of the younger guys who would never go out and speak against the team, knowing that it would not only affect, your status with the club, but, your perception of you as a teammate to other organizations. So we'll probably never get that truth out of those players. But I can just imagine the younger guys or the guys who are, deeper in the lineup, just wondering what they can do to, get more playing time. We know this team doesn't utilize a fourth line. The third line is, pretty much intact, built around Adam Lowry and a couple select players. And then the top six kind of speaks for itself. And there have been changes there. I think they've been changes not based on spicing things up or on accountability for some of the top six, but more so to do with injuries. And so at this point, it'd be fascinating to hear the truth from some of those players and what they feel the opportunities are here in Winnipeg, because those are the ones I think are being limited, whether they're prospect super young players or whether they're players that have established themselves and just don't find a way of moving up and down the lineup. That's certainly an issue here at this club.
Hey, 2 weeks from today, or maybe it'll be 2 weeks from tomorrow, depending on how they decide to set up the schedule. The Jets are finishing up with that game against the Seattle Kraken that's been now moved to that Sunday. Will be garbage day, and we'll be hearing from members of the Winnipeg Jets. I can't think of a garbage day without thinking of 2019 and just what a morgue it was. And, that sort of spoke to the second half of that season and the quick exit to St. Louis. What do you expect to hear that day? What will that be like? Because, obviously we know this team isn't going to be in the playoffs. We know what the disappointments are, but we've also seen some very morose days, on display, none more than that date in 2019. How do you think that's going to go in a couple weeks?
I wish I knew. I mean, I'm certainly intrigued. I know what the hot topics are going to be, whether or not we get the truth or whether we get, the answers we're looking for, or if someone, some of these questions are tough when you're particularly asking about your bosses, right? I mean, are we going to hear the truth about what some players felt about Dave Lowry's systems? Probably not. I hope so, because I think you can just tell there's some that disagree with it. Asking about your boss is a tough situation. So I don't think it's, going to get those answers out, fairly smoothly, or again, as expansive as we might want.
Asking about your teammates is really tough too. And I mean, we literally heard that on the weekend. I mean, we heard from,
but no one's throwing names out, right? Like, it's one of those, like, it's kind of hockey. It's biblical. You're supposed to
never
say
going to happen,
right?
Though, right?
You're supposed to say, no one's going to come out and say, even as forthcoming as Paul Stastny has been this season, he's not going to come out. I mean, he's been in this league long enough not to point fingers at players, but there are things that you hope you do get the truth out of, and that's the trouble in gaining an identity for this team, where they fell short, what impact Paul Maurice's exit had. I mean, it's just fascinating to me that, like, we really don't know exactly why Paul Maurice left this team.
Did it have any impact? I mean, really? I mean, looking back at the season now, did it?
On some players it might, and I do think that there's some, because I think that he really truly left, right? Like, it wasn't.
I know, but the reason why I bring up that question is there's a reason why he left when he did. This team was playing the way that they were. They were miserable. They were, miserably unprepared at times to play against even some of the worst teams in the league. They were losing games that they had to. And again, it was earlier on in the season. But the reason why I asked, did that have much of an effect, is because Paul Maurice left. And with the extension, I mean, I guess Dave Lowry won 3 in a row right out of the gate after losing on that Friday night. But from there, is anything really different than it was when the team was in that losing streak that led to Paul Maurice walking away? I haven't seen very much different, to be honest with you. I mean, it's the same thing, just different guy behind the bench.
In a word, no. So, no, nothing. And that's kind of the point. But I just mean in general, like, it's just, the answers. And the other thing about garbage bag day is, who's going to no show? You know what I mean? Who's going to not show up? Who's going to make up some excuse that, they waited too long, or they had an appointment, or whatever, you know what I mean? Because there's going to be some people. I mean, when you look at some individuals and an ability to have, that level of accountability, maybe they see it as better off not to say anything, right? Maybe they see it as that. So, I mean, there's lots of things to consider. I don't want to say good news, but it's not like these guys won't have had time to think of their answers, right? I mean, it's not like their minds elsewhere pushing for a playoff spot here. So I'm hoping we get as much truth as possible. But when you look at the way this culture has been set up in this team, and just when it comes accountability to the media, which is ultimately the accountability to fans, I mean, it's just, you really are left with I don't know what's going to happen situation. I don't know if there's going to be blowouts. I don't know if there's going to be guys that finally want to get things off their chest. Or if they wake up the next morning, they've had a sleep on it, because the guys usually are most emotional after a loss, right? Or after a game where, maybe they get to sleep on it and they don't want to create, an issue in their exit interviews. Maybe they get the answers they want in their exit interviews before they face the media. So there's all these factors that come that are at play that could, lead to, various responses from players. But I just hope that we get an opportunity to strictly, get some truth, right? I mean, this was not I think anyone can see that this was not a good season for the Winnipeg Jets, that they never found a way, a style of play that was successful. They just failed through and through throughout the season. And, you hope that there's a bit of a look in the mirror kind of situation. And if they're not going to talk about, the team as a whole, maybe they get into their own individual responsibilities, and collectively that turns into or paints a bit of a better picture for why things didn't go as planned this season.
Yeah, no doubt. It'll be a very, very interesting day. I still am not too sure what we're going to get out of these final 6 games, whether anything's different from, again, we heard some interesting stuff. Certainly it was more interesting than what we saw on the ice. I mean, a couple more road games and then 4 games at home. And then things will get interesting around here with the off season that has been, unfortunately, we've been talking about the off season for 2 months around here for obvious reasons right now. What do you got cooking this week?
You know what? Just a lot of Jets, some CFL stuff. Obviously, a story on Saunders today. We'll find out what his last few years has been like. But just covering the local beats and continuing on. I mean, this. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity, Huss, to open up with talking about what's been going on in the football community and what will go on. That's going to be something that's certainly close to me and something I'll be on. And I don't, I'm not one to advocate for people, to come forward, but certainly anyone that wants to and wants to have a confidential conversation, I'm around. But let's just say my weeks and months here will be I won't be looking for things to do. Let's just say that.
Well, and we won't be looking for things to talk about because we do have the excitement of the Bombers going for a three-peat starting in less than a month. And as we say, I mean, I think things are going to really pick up around here the second this season's over. We'll be paying attention to the Stanley Cup playoffs, but it really will be all eyes on, not the dressing room of the Winnipeg Jets, but the highest offices of True North to see what happens with this hockey club in so many ways going into the offseason. Hammer, thanks for doing this, man. Always love having you on the show.
Hey, always a pleasure, Huston. Yeah, right around the corner. I can't believe another Bomber season, and certainly something fans can look forward to. And a team that's once again looking to be at the top of the castle and the power rankings heading into this year. So thanks for having me on, and thanks to the commenters and everything. You know how it goes.
You got it. Thanks, buddy. There it is, Jeff Hamilton at Jeff K. Hamilton on Twitter, and you can read all of his work in the pages of the Winnipeg Free Press. All right. Well, for the final time this season, one final Princess Auto curling report. Congratulations to Bruce Mowat of Great Britain, who won the men's side at the Princess Auto Players Championship. And a huge congratulations to Manitoba's Carrie Anerson. They weren't gold medalists. They ended up winning silver, losing to Hasselberg in the final, but another amazing season for Team Anerson. And some big news today. Brendan Bottcher has put together a bit of a wrecking crew of a new rink, just announced earlier today. He's going to have, I believe, Ben Hebert, Mark Kennedy, and Brent Gallant all in his team. So Hebert from Team Cooey, Mark Kennedy from Jacobs, Gallant from Gushue's Club, along with Brendan Bottcher. That is a star-studded team. And of course, Princess Auto, great sponsors of curling. We'll kind of be moving our focus on with our Princess Auto spots to two other organizations they support very well. The Winnipeg Gold Eyes, cannot wait for baseball season. And of course, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Princess Auto is, of course, the place where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. Visit them at one of two Winnipeg locations, or you can shop online 24/7, 365 over at princessauto.com. Great day for some Boston pizza. You're probably all full from all those big family meals or gatherings over the course of the weekend for Passover or Easter. Maybe it's a nice night to, check out what's going on the tube and order some BP. If you're heading out for any of the games over the course of the next couple of weeks, no better place to do it with your pals than your local Boston Pizza Lounge. But of course, you can check out their game day deals and more, and order online at bostonpizza.com. And our friends at Nick and Nicky DQ, I feel for them right now, because this normally would be, when it just starts getting nice and everyone wants to just fast forward into summer, getting all those great DQ treats at one of the four Nick and Nicky DQs. It seems like we're waiting a little bit, but the great news is the new stack burgers are so good. Even if it's not a big run on ice cream right now, the burger game at DQ, top notch. And of course, hey, the Slurpee capital of the world, we're down with blizzards 12 months a year. Pop down and see them at any of the four Nick and Nicky DQs, DQ Niverville, DQ Northgate, DQ Polo Park, and DQ St. Anne's, and the three Winnipeg locations now hooked up for delivery with all of the delivery apps here in the city of Winnipeg. At DQ Manitoba on Instagram if you want to get a head start on ordering a custom cake to pick up at any of the four Nick and Nicky DQs. All right, let's get Remis back in here. Remo, that was some great stuff with the Hammer and, of course, the Scooch, two of my favorite guys to talk about. And listen, I mean, I don't know whether we really got very far with the answers, but I think everyone knows what the big questions are going into this offseason. And those echoes will just grow louder over the next couple of weeks as the Jets finish up this campaign and get ready for that final meeting with the media at the end of the season. And then everyone goes their separate ways, incredibly, in just a couple of weeks.
Yeah. I know they got a couple games left, but going over to Money Puck, they have the Jets at 0%. to make the playoffs. Not mathematically eliminated, though. So you know it's between 0% and 0.1. And I mean, I kind of agree with Joe. I mean, the team has been selling that they're in a playoff chase for weeks when we all know that it was
not on the ice.
What do you mean not on the ice? Oh, no, their play. Sorry. Selling with their mouth. Yes, by talking about a playoff chase. That's what I mean. Not on the ice. I mean, they've been playing it's been over for a while going back here. So I'm not going to disagree.
If there was any question about whether any of that was legit, you go back to watch that Detroit game. And, listen, we knew all we needed to know at that point. And hey, listen, in some ways, maybe this is a good thing. I mean, as I said, I mean, if you're one of those people that's worrying about one draft slot or two, maybe the Jets get a bit better of a draft pick going on. I think we all know where they're going to be, probably in that tier in and around, 10, 11, 12, 13, something like that. But to me, I think, and this is the reason why I think those comments were so important on the weekend, Reem, was that if there was, and again, I really do feel that there is a realization and acceptance within the organization that this is broken and there's, aggressive moves need to be made to fix it. Time will tell whether that is true or not, whether I'm right. But when you hear comments like Paul Stastny's and Kyle Connors, two of the most important players in the team, and Stastny, a guy we've referred to many times as the conscience of the team, the more games like we saw on the weekend and the more comments we heard from key players, I think it's less and less, never mind likely, even possible that they could go forward trying to essentially just make a few minor changes and expect a different result next season.
Yeah, I want to play these Kyle Connor clips because I enjoyed. I mean, his big one was commenting on lack of motivation, and then he basically, said you should be looking at Tampa and see what they're doing. I'm going to play those right here, but
yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, you know what? I forget what I was going to say, but yeah, I think I think people want to see big changes. I think a lot of people were seeing Ched know this has kind of been a slow decline here for the last couple of years. And I think I am looking forward to what's going to happen after the season. I mean, do we see something like the day after cleanup? And I kind of agree with Jeff. I forgot the who no-shows question. I don't know if we're going to put bets in on who no-shows. And I saw someone in chat say, are you allowed to do that? Well, I think Perreault walked out last year and didn't speak. I think Enstrom in 2019.
Buff sure as hell didn't talk in 2019. I'll tell you that much.
And people still haven't heard from them. And one thing I want to say, I'm happy that no one has brought up Bufflin in chat today. I'm shocked because on Kenny and Rennie post game on Saturday, people were saying how Buff screwed the team. He did screw them, I think, the year after, but it's been 4 years. You've had plenty of time here to recover.
Well, and that's all of last season was about that. I mean, bringing in Brendan Dillon and bringing in Nate Schmidt. Right? Listen, I was as guilty as anyone of thinking, okay, the things that they lost when when Dustin Bufflin walked out was, a big physical defenseman and, and maybe as importantly, someone to bring a little bit of joy and fun in the room and, make this team, hopefully enjoy themselves a little bit more. And, listen, it just hasn't worked out the way that they'd thought. But, listen, this is not about Buff anymore. This is about the 2021-2022 Winnipeg Jets, where they're at right now and where they go through. Let's hear these clips from Connor. Why don't you go 6 first and then 7?
Sure thing. Here we go.
Yeah, it's they're tough losses. Two really good teams. At the same time, giving up that many goals. Not coming out the right way, giving up a lead in Tampa. They're tough losses. Especially in Florida too, giving up, 2 goals right away. It seems like we're almost deflated in that game. Come back, had a great start. Just couldn't find it. I don't know whether it's tired, lack of motivation, some of the guys in the room, or what it is. It's we're definitely frustrated group here, and it's tough. Yeah, there's a slight chance, but there is a chance to make playoffs here, and 2 critical games, and we put up that kind of effort. Yeah, it's something that I think we should take a page out of their book, watch some video, see what they're doing well. I think we can learn all as a group, take a look in the mirror, every single one of us, top to bottom, and realize that, we got a ways to go here.
So there was Kyle Connor discussing what they need to do. I have to admit, I laughed about that one for a couple reasons.
Hold on, just one sec. I was muted there, so that clip was. I'll just paste this into the podcast. That was Kyle Connor talking about using Tampa as a measuring stick. Sorry, I'm 2 strikes for me today.
It's 2 strikes. That's okay. We're only I see. Yeah, there's just 2. Yeah, Schickster has a 3 mute button thing. No, we're only at 2 right now. He's not quite out. With that comment about looking at some video and seeing what teams like Tampa is doing, I had to think, can you imagine being the Jets video coach this year? Like, just the video from the disasters in front of Connor Hellebuck from this weekend, probably you could have put together a nice 3-hour session to talk about with the teams. Never mind looking at video of other teams that are doing things properly. It would be amazing to be able to see exactly what goes on behind the scenes with those video sessions, because my God, tell you what, there's no shortage of things to be showing the players going forward, both from a negative perspective on what the team has been doing, as well as what you'd like to see them to do. But it was interesting hearing Kyle Connor suggest that maybe that's something that they should be doing. Even though there's only 6 games left in a very, very long regular season.
Yeah. One thing I did want to bring up too, I just really enjoy, I feel bad saying this, but before Nikolai Ehlers answered his question, it was just like this noise coming up here. Just that. You can just hear the frustration.
I'll say this about Ehlers. He really does care. Joe's right. I mean, when we talk about some of the things that the Jets, sometimes can't get out of their own way. I mean, as great as Ehlers has been, and once again, offensively, he's been the top effective player. You want to talk about, the analytic numbers. I mean, he leads the team again. I think it's 4 years in a row where he has been that guy. But at the same time, I mean, there are some warts on Ehlers' games. I mean, there's been some giveaways, some poor, sometimes getting a little bit too fancy, putting the puck in an area that essentially turns it over and goes forward. But listen, turnovers come in many shapes and sizes, and everyone has had a little bit of a piece, or maybe not a little bit of a piece in that at some point so far this season. I'll say this, though. I really got from Ehlers when we heard from him, Remo, just the, how gut-wrenching this is for him, and I think we heard that from Kyle Connor and certainly from Paul Stastny as well. And when you're hearing those players say things and feel the way they are, I think it is a pretty interesting, maybe little bit of a view of what's happening inside right now, because it doesn't seem like this team is together. For everything that we've been sold, that this is a great group together. I don't know if anyone's really buying that right now, and it's quite clear that this is not just, a team that's very, very close to getting it right. And if anything right now, and I think because of the disappointment of the season, and regardless of what you hear in the media, everyone knowing that it's over, these are real tough games for them to play right now. But, they got tested against 2 of the top teams in the East. And, it was no match. And, tell you what, I mean, you want to be a competitive team, a playoff team, never mind a true Stanley Cup contender. So many things that have to happen with this club to change from what's happened so far this season, because as we've seen, this team isn't close right now.
Yeah, one thing Dave Lowry brought up over and over again on the weekend was that the team keeps trying to get in this habit of getting into these rush games, not playing the way that they want them to play, and
little track meet.
Yeah, little track meet action, and it's not going well. Here's Dave Lowry. We haven't played too much of Dave Lowry. Here's his comments.
Jungle Dave.
This is after Saturday's loss to Tampa.
Probably the biggest thing that we'll take away is that if we want to get into a rush game, if we want to trade chances up and down the ice, that's probably not the strength of our hockey team. And that when we play what we deem the right way, where we play in straight lines, and when I talk about playing in straight lines, it's about attacking, and it's about attacking with speed. It's about getting pucks inside, getting to the net. When we play that way, we give ourselves a chance. And when we start going up and down and giving and taking, it's not going to play to our advantage.
That goes without saying as far as what we've seen so far this year, but we can talk about attacking all we want and about what they're doing offensively. I mean, certainly on Saturday, they scored 4 goals in their first 11 shots. I mean, I'm far more concerned with their inability to cover properly in their own end. I mean, some of the goals that were scored this weekend, this goes back to what Stastny had said. I mean, they continue to leave their goaltender, their all-star level goaltender, just basically hanging him out to dry. And a lot of the things that Dave Lowry, I think, is talking about being simple when it comes to, what they're doing offensively. It probably would take a far longer and more detailed answer to talk about what the heck is going wrong and continues to go wrong in their own end and why that's happening.
Yeah, he kind of said the same thing. Both days that he wants.
I mean, what's he gonna say right now? Well, I really do. I sort of feel for Lowry right now. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, he's a dead man walking. It's a unique situation, the fact that his son is on the team as well. And I think that complicates things a little bit. I mean, I think both of them have been professional. We haven't seen anything that really, but I mean, that is a part of it as well. And, as disappointing as this is for everyone in that dressing room, it's got to be incredibly disappointing for Dave Lowry, who I think when he took over this job, thought that maybe this was the opportunity that, he'd been working for a number of years. And, with what's happened and what hasn't happened on his watch, I think it's pretty clear that, the way the organization almost has to go, even if at the beginning of this arrangement, they didn't think that that was the plan.
Yeah, I agree. I thought, it seemed like a good opportunity. Maurice took the team as far as he could go, and you thought Lowry could take them to, another level. That it kind of flatlined, and, is it just him? Is it the whole coaching staff? But I think more interestingly, does the organization think that Kevin Cheveldayoff is the guy to lead this team going forward after 11 seasons? You've had 1 year of a lot of success. I think 2019 is what the next year after. But other than those two, you kind of lucked into the play-in game in the shortened season. And last year you were in the, in that division, the Canadian division, and maybe you got kind of lucky with the scheduling. So we'll wait and see. It is going to be interesting. I know we do have a game. There is a game tomorrow we haven't even touched on. I mean, the team practiced today. Pierre-Luc Dubois was banged up. He took a maintenance day. I'll just go over the lines. I mean, they're playing the Rangers. It'll be interesting how Andrew Kopp revenge game, as he's been lighting it up with the Rangers.
Hey, listen, just before you do that and get that ready, Maul, if you wonder why people are mentioning that you're a troll sometimes, and I often do really enjoy your takes and love having you around, it's comments like the one that you're throwing at me in the chat right now, which is all caps trolling. This goes back to a comment 7 periods into Dave Lowry's tenure. There was the game against Washington where everything had happened. They beat St. Louis the next day, had 2.5 weeks off, had that tough first period against Vegas in a game that they won. And, some people on Twitter saying, oh, this is garbage, he's done. Is it unreasonable to give someone more than 140 minutes behind the bench to see what they're going to do? I don't think so. Do you think Oiler fans made a complete decision on Woodcroft after 7 periods? Of course not. So anyways, it's absolutely ridiculous. I would hope that anyone would give anyone a chance of more than 3 games to show that, what they're doing. Now, where we are right now, yeah, no kidding. I mean, it's pretty clear right now, but anyway, stop going to that. It was a stupid comment then, and it's just as stupid now, even with the body of information that we have over the last half of the season. Thank you very much. Anyways, Remis, let's get to...
I was going to say, I do enjoy Maul Priest is coming in hot, but I mean...
Oh, for sure. It's just not like, is that a bad take? Maybe give a guy more than 7 periods before we act as judge, jury, and executioner? I think that's somewhat reasonable. I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
Don't get so angry. I know Mom Paris has not called himself a troll. Look, man, I said put your real name on if you don't want to be considered a troll. And you got there. People are laughing that he baited you into that one.
He did bait me into it. But anyways, I just figured if people are wondering what that is about, I figured that maybe we give the guy more than 7 periods. And by the way, they won the next 3 games. So anyways, we all know that it's probably not Jungle Dave's job going forward. So I think we can all agree on that and move forward into tomorrow's game. Yes, the reuniting with their old pals Andrew Kopp and Jacob Trouba in a very different situation. That's what's happening here in Winnipeg, an exciting team that is getting ready for the playoffs. And I think we're all going to be sort of silently pulling, maybe not so silently pulling for the Rangers, because if they could somehow win 2 rounds, one of those 2 second-round picks for Andrew Kopp will become a first-rounder.
Yeah, we are pulling for the Rangers, 100%. Come on, got to get that extra pick. So maybe tomorrow. I don't know. I guess we're pulling for them in the playoffs, right? But we'll have to wait and see.
Win
tomorrow.
2 rounds and then whatever.
Yeah, and there we go. The lines today were thanks Mitch Clinton was like the only person there. Mike McIntyre is supposed to be on the trip, but delayed from the storm of the century that happened last week. That's what it was. Connor
potential alleged storm of the century.
Connor Stasny Ehlers, Sanford Brooks Wheeler. I'm assuming Brooks is a placeholder for Dubois. Barron Lowry Appleton. Barron moving down. Harkins, Tony Nato, Svechnikov. I'm just going with the same D pairings that they have had. I mean, I don't know what they're going to be, but Morrissey, DeMello, Schmidt, Pionk, Stanley, Dillon. I don't know what they were, but that's what they've been. Stanley going in for Sandberg, who we all thought played very well and has played well in the lineup. But Dave Lowry said after Saturday's game, it's time to get Stan in, and they had to get him in, and he played on Saturday.
Yeah, he even dropped a big Stan in the in the post gamer as well. Well, let me just say this. If Dylan Sandberg's play got him out of the lineup on Saturday, considering what we saw on Sunday, I don't know how the hell he's not back in the lineup. And whether you want to take Logan Stanley out, he'd probably be at the top of the list or one of the other guys, considering there's 6 games left in the season. And you mentioned that number is now 0, although there's not an X beside them as being officially eliminated. I have no idea how it benefits anyone to have Dylan Sandberg up in the press box. And if he's not going to be there, get it back to the Moose, getting ready for the Calder Cup playoffs.
Yeah, I think that's something we're going to be watching, the player usage. Neil Pionk, I thought he played pretty well on Saturday offensively. But, we speculated he's been kind of banged up this year. Let some of these guys play who've made an impact, or let them play with the Moose. Connor Hellebuyck's workload, I think, has been a topic as well. He's played the most minutes out of any goalie the last couple of years. He's faced the most high danger chances. Time to give this guy rest. I'm still shocked. He started the back-to-back games the last 2 weekends. I'm still puzzled why he didn't start that game against Toronto. Now, I don't know if it would have made a difference. I'm just curious about, why he would start, one back-to-back. Seemingly the Toronto one was more important. So
if there was ever a time that you thought at that, and listen, if it's all about the playoff, their possibility, albeit still slim, was far greater at that point than it was at any point over the past week when he got those back-to-back starts. So again, no idea about that. I don't even have a theory on it, to be perfectly honest, because, there were other times earlier in the season when there was a lot more to play for, where Comrie went into games where I firmly thought that Connor Hellebuyck would get the start. And listen, to Comrie's credit, when he's been in, for the most part, he's played very well. Certainly has exceeded, I think, what most people thought the Jets would get out of that backup position. But it has been very curious as to, the way that they've utilized those the goaltending. And then I heard Ken say he thinks that, Eric Comrie's going to get or should get 5 of the final 6 games of the season. I highly doubt that will happen. I guess I'm here for Eric Comrie getting a few more games for sure. But listen, we know it's Connor Hellebuyck's net more often than not. Maybe he's, pleading with the coaches to keep him in. But man, if you watched till the end of the game on Saturday, and in about the last half minute of the game, when it was 7-4 and Hellebuyck was out of the net on the bench, he was in the hallway, just sort of standing in the hallway, looking back with the gaze on the game. And I don't know, it was just a very interesting shot that kind of stayed in my mind of, just what he must be thinking right now, what he's been put through the last couple of the games in particular, because we know he's a very positive person. When we think about, when in the last couple of times he won the helmet, he kept on hammering, let's go make the playoffs. Let's start better next time, guys, trying to push them on board. But they need to they need to play as much for their goaltender as each other right now, and that hasn't happened. And needless to say, next year that will be at the top of the list to help out a guy that has been the backbone of this organization for a number of years now.
Yeah, I agree with you. So I think he's probably deserving of a rest. Maybe he won't want to take one, but when the guy started as many games as he has and the team's out of the playoffs, I don't think you have anything to gain by playing him unless maybe he's got some contract bonuses for games played, which I would think. I mean, he's hit, but
how can he not have hit them already?
Yeah, but I guess that's something to watch as we go forward.
No doubt about it. Hey, listen, hey, quickly, we do got to get to Coolbet Lines. A couple other things I want to get to coming out of the weekend as well, and maybe we'll kind of tie all that into the last few minutes of the program. But a big shout out. I don't know if you folks have got your hands yet on the new CC and Ginger. I did on the weekend, and it was exactly as I expected. Amazing. And I didn't have to mix anything as well. 6 packs of CC and Ginger are available in your liquor stores now. You can pick it up at beer stores as well. And if you are going into your Manitoba liquor marts, 26 of the biggest stores right now have CC displays where you'll get a free can of the RTD ready to drink CC and Ginger Ale with the purchase of any Canadian Club product. And all month long, the 1750 mLs are on sale at your local Manitoba liquor marts. And make sure to be with us on Friday with another marble race here on Winnipeg Sports Talk with great prizing courtesy of our friends over at Canadian Club. We will get to these Coolbet Lines, Remo, and I'm looking forward to checking out the hoops games tonight. And we'll get to the line in a minute, but a tough start for the Raptors, and even worse, Scotty Barnes, rookie phenom for the Raps, in a walking boot today. He is out for game number 2. It looks like they're also going to be without Gary Trent Jr. and Thaddeus Young. There's a lot of optimism that the Raptors might be able to upset the Sixers in this series. But the start of it was not good. The team played one of their worst games in a long time from my perspective. And now have 3 key players, especially Scotty Barnes, out for game 2. Not getting any easier for Nick Nurse's squad.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the line here. Sixers favored by 7.5. So, I mean, they're built to go far. They couldn't quite get past Milwaukee last year. Added James Harden for Ben Simmons, and Harden's decided that he wants to play. So, yeah, Scotty Barnes a big loss for Toronto, and still going to tune in tonight to this one.
Yeah, 6:30 start. Raps plus 270 on the money line if you think they can shock the Sixers. Other games tonight, 2 other ones. Mavs still dealing with the Utah Jazz without Luka Doncic. They are 5.5-point home underdogs without their star. The Jazz, a road favorite of -213 against the depleted Mavs, looking to go 2-0. And the Warriors, after a comfortable victory in game 1, look to go to 2-0 against the Denver Nuggets tonight in the late game. That one starts over at 9 p.m. As far as the National Hockey League, we actually do have some games tonight, 6 of them to be exact. Dallas Stars could get just a little step closer to officially eliminating the Winnipeg Jets with the win tonight against the Canucks. It was a very close one. Dallas -111, Vancouver -105 at home. The Vegas Golden Knights are a heavy favorite at -323 to beat the New Jersey Devils. You got 2 teams ready to golf in Ottawa and Seattle playing each other. Ottawa -102. Seattle a slight home favorite. Carolina -400 on the road against the Coyotes, who were embarrassed 9-1 to the Calgary Flames on the weekend. Flames, for their part, in Chicago tonight as a heavy favorite, -312 on the road. And the Avalanche hosting the Capitals, Colorado, -217. And here's a very interesting note coming out of the weekend, Remo, and I'm not sure whether this has ever happened before. 22 games in the NHL from Friday until yesterday. Favorites went 22-0. So if you had a big chalk parlay on the weekend, you were probably cashing it. A lot of the underdogs pretty much done for the season right now. Many people would have thought that's the way the Jets looked against the Panthers and Lightning for the majority of those games. And certainly the Coyotes looked like they were done on Saturday. But a lot of these bottom teams are just getting whooped as you get closer to that final game, number 82.
Yeah, weird weird to even read that all the underdogs lost on the weekend. I guess we'll wait and see going forward. It is that time where teams getting eliminated. I'm seeing more and more teams clinching the playoff spots, although kind of been, especially in the East, you know who's going to be in, but I see, look at the schedule now. You got Carolina, Rangers, Pittsburgh, Florida, Toronto, Tampa, all clinch, Boston, Washington. East has been decided.
It was decided at Halloween.
That's
I mean, that's the thing about this season. It literally was done in November. We knew the 8 teams that were going to be taking place in the East side. Little different in the West, but as we said, it's coming right down to Dallas and Nashville looking to clinch their spots. Winnipeg done. Vancouver essentially done. And we'll find out really whether it's going to be the Vegas Golden Knights or the Los Angeles Kings. Vegas does have a game in hand on LA. They're 3 points back, and the Kings hanging on by dear life right now. I'm sure if I'm the Oilers, I would prefer the Kings hang on and get them in the first round. But it will be probably Vegas and the Golden Knights getting right down to the end. And, Nashville and Dallas, I think both control their own destiny. I think we expected both wildcard teams to come from the Central Division most of the year, and it certainly is looking like that will be the case based on the remaining schedules.
Yeah, well, so we'll wait and see. Yeah. One thing I do want to say, I watched the Seattle. This is a side note. I watched the Seattle, New Jersey overtime on Saturday. Like, why am I watching 2 teams out of the playoff, the fantasy purpose? But might have been the most boring 3-on-3 overtime. This is my hot take. As 3-on-3 overtime, it's toasted. They figured it out. There's too much not attacking, standing around. It's all spent in the neutral zone, regrouping. If you see something you don't like, you just turn around. It's got to be longer than 5 minutes. Or I don't make some rule you can't take it behind the red line once you've entered the zone, because teams they've figured it out. It was annoying to watch teams just like dick around and not even try to attack and just there's no
doubt there has been, once the coaching got into it, there's a very different approach by many teams to 3-on-3 overtime. And there's other teams that just feel that they've got a better chance to win in a shootout than they do in 3-on-3. And are more than happy at draining the clock. And maybe Jersey and Seattle would be on top. By the way, speaking of Seattle, did you see the additions to their ownership group today?
Yeah, Seattle legends, Marshawn Lynch and Macklemore. I mean, how much are these guys putting in? What stake are they getting? It's probably minuscule. There was a video of Marshawn Lynch driving a Zamboni around.
That was amazing. Just basically doing big donuts in the middle of the rink. I was sure that was going to end with him crashing the Zamboni into the boards, but it didn't happen.
I was very worried for the condition of the ice after that. I don't know if they had the flutters for the term on, but I mean, Seattle's done a great job marketing their team. They've had a lot of excitement, even though the team is terrible, and I think they screwed up on the expansion draft, but we'll have to wait and see what happens. Although Matty Beniers, who they picked, he's signed, and I thought he looked pretty good from what I saw in the brief viewing on Saturday.
Yeah, nice to get him into the lineup. A little bit of excitement for the future. I mean, first year. Listen, Vegas screwed the expectations up of any expansion team probably forever in the National Hockey League right now. Although I am with you. I think that Seattle could have been a lot better if maybe they'd made some different choices when it came to the expansion draft, potential moves. But in a lot of ways, Vegas sort of ruined it for Seattle because no one wanted to trade with Ron Francis. He had his picks. He had his price. No one met it. And they just went ahead and made a number of picks, including guys they were picking knowing that they'd never be with the club and then moving over to free agency. But anyways, Marshawn Lynch now and Macklemore, minority owners of the Team 32 in the NHL, the Seattle Kraken.
I'm trying to think, what would be the Winnipeg equivalent, giving like Burton Cummings and Chris Jericho small stake in the Jets? I mean, would be the Winnipeg equivalent? So I always had a good time. Maybe because I was listening to the Jericho podcast.
Jericho and Kenny Omega, maybe?
Yeah. Put them in.
Guys,
give them ownership.
Give them their spot. Anyways, all the lines for Coolbet up at coolbet.com. If you have never used Coolbet before, use the promo code WST for a 100% bonus on your first deposit up to $200. Hey, one other quick note. Jays won yesterday, split on the weekend. very angry Jays fans with the umpiring on Saturday. Tell me if you've heard that before. They're off today, but this series up against the Red Sox, going to be interesting to see how it works. Red Sox apparently have a bunch of unvaxxed players, and today reportedly a bunch of masks in around the group, so I think they're dealing with COVID as well, and that could be a real issue for many teams, but especially ones that have a high number of unvaccinated players. Going to be tough for them because you got to have that pass to get into Canada still.
Yeah, that's the I think going to be the story for teams facing the Jays. Not for the Jays though, who every player in their team did get vaccinated, so I mean they're not going to have any issues. I do wonder if they'll have can you still get stuck? I'm not up to date on the travel rules if you can get stuck if you test. I forget, but I know players, U.S. players not vaccinated won't be able to come in. So it's just going to be an interesting story for the Jays season, and you're kind of seeing that play out with the Raptors playoffs. I know there's one player in the 76ers who's not able to play. So
yeah, I wish it was Joel Embiid. That would be nice.
Yeah,
he was still doing his own research and decided not to get it done. Was unavailable for the games north of the border. Anyways, we'll talk some Jays tomorrow on the program. Get ready for the series. Get the latest on that. Of course, the Jets do have a game day tomorrow. Mike McIntyre is going to join us for his thoughts on these final 6 games and maybe more of interested again. I know Mike's got a piece in the Free Press on what we've been talking quite a bit about, what exactly we heard from members of the Winnipeg Jets Saturday night and Friday night post those 2 tough losses in Florida. So it will be a game day tomorrow. We'll have more on the Jays, and of course, we are going to be getting ready for playoff hockey at the Ice Cave. Congratulations to the Winnipeg Ice, the number 1 team in the WHL. Matt Savoy, Rookie of the Year. He and Carson Lambos, Players of the Year right now. And I guess we'll find out as well what they're going to do with those Carson Lambos bobbleheads. I imagine they'll give them out at a playoff game because they were supposed to give them out on Thursday, and then those 2 games got shifted to Regina because of the storm. So we'll get into the Ice for the rest of the week as they begin the playoffs on the weekend. And then 2 weeks from now, the Moose will finish up their season, and there will be playoff hockey downtown. Got a chance to take in the game yesterday. Not a great game for Manitoba. They ended up losing, and it was a split against Rockford on the weekend. But they're booked for the postseason. Check out moosehockey.com for information on playoff tickets. Should be a lot of fun. I'll be looking forward to getting out to some of those games. Great show today. Thanks to everyone, even you, Maul, in chat. A lot of fun with everyone joining us today on YouTube. Thanks to everyone listening on the podcast as well. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that red subscribe button and be back with us tomorrow live at 1 p.m. on YouTube. Big thanks to all the sponsors that make this program happen, including Wallace & Wallace, Aikens Lake, F Apparel, Breezy Bend, Vita Health, Culligan Water, Manitoba Battery, Royal Sports, Not AutoCorp, Little Brown Jug, our friends over at Princess Auto, Boston Pizza, the Nick and Nicky DQ Group, Canadian Club Whiskey, and of course, Coolbet Canada. Folks, have a great night tonight. We'll be back tomorrow with another packed episode of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily right here on YouTube and in your podcast feed tomorrow afternoon.
Oh my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.